try and make all my little travel, man. And then it's like,
So
well,
what is Spirit Quest? So I just started rolling. So I typically just roll and start into these.
Oh, you're good. So Spirit Quest is the thing. I think the same thing you guys did.
Oh, okay. So ayahuasca stuff. Nice, man.
Yeah. So
feeling,
I missed that.
Feeling a call to that.
Yeah. I haven't done it yet. Technically, work stuff, but I'm also looking to leave DOD, so I don't have a problem talking about it.
Sure.
I'm looking to leave DOD, but what happened is I had a buddy who went and did this. And upon seeing him after, same thing as me, man, like 20 years in military deployments, everything else. And as soon as I ran into him, I was like, something's different.
Yo.
And I started asking him, hey, man, what happened? And he told me, he said, hey, I went and did this. Well, he didn't go to Spirit Quest. I learned about Spirit Quest through the internet or whatever.
Now, where are they located?
Peru.
Okay, see, I'm not familiar with them at all. Like, I'm familiar with the Soltara, and then the Rhythmia is the one that I went to in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Or that we went to, Bonnie and I.
Yeah. So that's what that was my initial plan coming out of Afghanistan, to go do that. But put that on hold now, for COVID.
There may be some other avenues, and we'll discuss after.
Sweet.
It's just still the legality of the whole thing, right? I can't. It's stupid, because I believe this is a wild benefit for a lot of people, and I don't understand why we don't have access to it if it exists.
Yeah,
it's a real shame.
It's a big deal, man. And then it's one of the things that I want to kind of lean into with Warpath, and just in general, man, like maps and all that other stuff.
Right, the map stuff's super interesting, right? Like, I mean, it just blows me away, right, that we're seeing benefit for people with PTSD, especially coming out of your line of work, and then we're not giving access to it. But and man, I'd love to think that it's as simple as we're not giving access to it because the simple solution to that is big pharma money.
Mm-hmm.
The nefarious solution to that is we don't want these guys being able to think on their own.
I hear both, man. I think my bigger thing is I deal a lot with information now, information warfare and whatever else. But regardless, right? And we see it in the news right now. Information is such a big deal, and the information tells us to be afraid.
Yeah, that's been a big one for me, especially with more and more use of psychedelics. And recently I've dabbled a little bit with some microdosing of psilocybin and other mushrooms, like the legal ones, like what Force Tomatic does and stuff like that.
Okay.
And man, I've seen a big giant benefit with what I've been doing and what I feel from the microdose. The best way I can describe it for me is like, it's what I've always wanted a nootropic to do. Like anytime I've ever taken one, I'm like, holy fuck, this is what I wanted. This is what they're all supposed to do. This is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you mean it exists in a plant, like a singular plant. We don't have to mix a bunch of shit.
And everybody's afraid of it, man. Because I mean, that's how I grew up, right? I grew
up in same boat.
Yeah.
I was scared of pot, or I don't know if scared's the word, or as much as I just bit into that authorities told me this was dangerous.
Yep.
And
that's it.
Okay. I trust the authorities at hand. And now, like especially after coming out of surgery and pain and being able to use cannabis to manage pain and keep my head on. And I remember the other day, it hit me really clear. I was hanging out in the basement, very, very stoned, in the bean bag. And I'm like, man, what the fuck are you protecting me from? This? Like, is this what we can't have people doing? Fuck.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because even there, like my mom, she's dealing with a bunch of stuff and she's in pain constantly. I'm just like, hey, this can work for you. Virginia's now decriminalized, like whatever. And she's grew up in the 50s. So dude, it's terrifying to her.
Dude, it was a very, very similar story with my dad. My dad was dying of pancreatic cancer. Like, I mean, like we know this is the direction this is going. We're not saving anyone, right? And even in the last 3 months, like watch the weight fall off of him and watch things go bad and watch the nausea from chemo and all that. And he just, oh no. And I'm like, what do you mean fucking no? You're going to be dead in 90 days. Like, come on, man. And like, not only that, like, you smoked in your past.
It's one of those things, man. And then, you know, with like the older generation, they're stuck, and moving them past that is a hard thing. So that's like me right now. It's a constant battle. Like, hey, this will help, this will work. And, you know, like, I remember she said something about being addicted to it, and I just kind of was like, I wanted to chuckle and be like,
no. It's the propaganda they were fed, man.
Yeah. But I think it's the same thing when we start talking about like psilocybin and everything else. Like, you have those things. Because I'm constantly, man, dealing and helping with veterans, and one of the things I'll find is guys that are completely resistant to it. They would just be like, "Oh no," you know. And like I said, the same for me. But now, after seeing several friends go through it, I'm like, oh, as soon as I give this job up, we're on the timer. Like,
yeah. So what, let's dive a little further. What is your current profession? I'm always curious about this because.
Oh man! So
of the weird jobs I've had, I've never had anything like what you guys do.
So now I'm a contractor. I'm a DoD contractor. I work specifically. Now I work for a program that deals with AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Before, I've done everything, man. But I left when I left the service. I just dug into Intel work because it kept me, as I made a promise to my little girl, it kept me a little bit safer than normal.
I think that's fair.
And so I spent the last couple years downrange in Afghanistan, and now I'm doing that, and I got a sweet gig. I can't complain. It's pretty interesting. Still not my, you know, king for a day. I wouldn't pick this, but I cannot complain at all, and it keeps me around soldiers. And if nothing else, man, for the rest of my life, I will try and help and give back to soldiers as much as possible.
Man, I think smart, logical leadership for that group of guys is still very valuable, you know, because at now being 37, and I look back at like the majority of those guys being in their 20s, I'm like, yo, like, of course they're in their 20s, because you don't get people like us in this age to want to go dive headfirst into that.
I mean, and it's funny too. Like, we look at it and I think it, like, we gloss over it, but then when you look back at it, you're like, whoa, like my first trip downrange, I think I was 20.
20.
Yeah. So, I mean, even more so, right? Like, not to get on a whole war kick or anything like that, but like, I went back to Afghanistan after being gone for probably 6 years. And I was like, and as I'm landing, I was like, I was 20 the first time I was here. I'm nearly 40.
Yeah, I'm a child.
Yeah,
fucking kid, like, right?
I've spent 20 years going in between this country, you know, for whatever reason, as a contractor, as a soldier, or whatever. So it's strange.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. Now, I guess over the last 20 years that you've been going that way, what changes have you seen on the ground there? I'm always interested in what the reality of, say, a place like Afghanistan is versus what we're portrayed. You know, that we see, whether in film or media or any of these type of things.
So I don't want to talk out of turn, man, because this time I spent a lot of time in the building and I didn't get to go out and do stuff. But what I'll say is,
well, you have a lot more experience there than, say, I do.
Yeah. The metropolitan areas is just that, man. There's I'll say 3 or 4 big cities, and that's what they are. They're big cities. They're not big cities in regards to the U.S., but they have a national identity, using that term loosely.
Sure.
Right. Whereas like the rest of Afghanistan, man, there's parts of Afghanistan, it's still 13th century, man.
Right.
And it's not going to change. There's also a huge portion, not just a huge portion, but a lot of Afghanistan, I would say, is it's tribal, man. They don't care about Afghanistan as a country. That's not a thing to them. They want to know what's happening in this region. So, I mean,
because their problems are so localized too. Like, what do you mean you're going to explain to one of them what our politics are? Like, couldn't give any less of a shit.
I've said this for a long time, man, and I'm not saying anybody else holds the sentiment, but the Afghanistan is suffering from a lack of internet and just formal education, and I think that, you know, that's just one of the huge problems we see there. I mean, the Brits completely different subject, but it's kind of same vein, man. Like the Brits and the whole IRA thing, like they went in and they spent a bunch of money to change things and made it that way. We're spending a bunch of money in a different fashion.
And I don't remember what this was. I think it was regarding when we were looking at Syria as a major threat there, for at least in the media. And one of the answers I heard someone say, and I can't remember who, so it's basically useless at this point, but somebody asked, like, what's the realistic answer for this? And it was like, realistic answer? Like not pretty, not political correctness. The realistic answer is we need to get rid of males over the age of 18. And then we need to bring in 500,000 doctors and teachers to fix the next generation.
You see it if you ever read Charlie Wilson's War or ever seen the movie, they said it in there,
Yeah.
and we voted against it and we didn't do it. And we saw what happened 20 years later.
And
the things like, go ahead.
And it's, I just, same talking points and getting excited, right? It's so much that I look at it, what a perfect combination it is, because you have religious fanaticism, and then you have a lack of education, and then you have a very, very controlled media. And so
for sure.
Anything that goes negative, it's so easy to point and say, this is the problem. And, I understand if I was in a tribal situation or more, that type of thing, and say a drone strike took place, I know who I believe the bad guy is.
Yeah. But it's as simple as, like, I've said this for a long time, man. It's like, if you wake up and you're there and your imam or we'll just say local leader says a dog is a cat, that's what you believe for the next 30 years. And then there's I can show up and be like, hey, it's like one of my first trips to Afghanistan. I was standing outside next to this guy pulling security, and this he's Afghan, and he's looking at me and he's like, Libyani? And I'm like, what? No, dude, I'm from America. And he's like, you're from America? Basically, he's like, his version of America is Baywatch. There's no black dudes on Baywatch.
There's no black dudes on Baywatch, yeah.
And so he was like, and I'm shocked because he's like, and I was just like, oh, like, this is a completely different thing, especially, coming from a suburban kid, man. I was a suburban kid in Virginia, and I show up over there and I'm like, oh. And, like most Americans, I think in 2000, 2001, where's Afghanistan on the map?
Good luck. I'd say still. I would still say most Americans can't find Afghanistan on a map.
Geography's a hard one for most people.
I bet most Americans, if you were to give a blank map and the states built as shapes like a kid's puzzle, can't put it together.
Oh, man. You'd be surprised how many people that are supposed to know still can't do it,
And that's like, we're notorious as Americans to have terrible concept of geography because our country's big and most of us don't go anywhere else. And so,
that's a huge one right there.
That's a huge one right there, that we don't have passports. And, that's such a different thing being in Europe, right? Because the other countries are state-sized. And so you move the way that we do across the country, and you go through 6 different countries with 5 languages.
Yeah.
It's a very different exposure.
I don't know what the stat is. There's some crazy status, like most Americans don't move outside of 100 miles from where they grew up.
Oh, man. That's true.
Let alone travel.
I bet that's people, much less Americans.
Yeah, probably. I don't know, but I definitely know that, like, one of the biggest things that's happened has been my ability to travel lately, man. And, like, that has been, an eye-opener. Traveling for work is one thing, but then being able to, a couple years ago, I took a trip to Spain and Morocco and just disappeared because it's what needed to happen.
Yeah, understand.
And being able to look at that and that trip and be able to look at yourself and you realize you're small, but not like this, like, I don't need to be here kind of way, but just like, oh, there's way more things that matter than what's going on right now.
Yeah, Earth is very big, very diverse, and also largely devoid of people. Like, there's a lot of, the states are very empty and very rural. And it's easy to look at the media and think everything here is LA or New York. And it's not.
Yeah, that's a conversation I just had yesterday, was about the fact that, like, everybody views their experience as the shared experience. Right. Like you think, because I grew up this way, you know, so I'm pretty lucky, man. Like, you know, I call it first generation middle class, right? Like my mom and dad, like my mom straight out of Detroit, right? And but the rest of our family is in Detroit.
Yeah.
My dad grew up in DC, and so spending summers in Detroit, you're like, wait, this is not the same as suburban Virginia. Like,
No.
you know, you go up and you say soda, and they like look at you like you're a fraud. Like, what do you mean soda? It's pop.
Pop.
You know.
Yeah, I grew up in the South, so everything was a Coke.
Coke. Yep. Yeah. And so, you know, being able to see that, it's a big perspective shift if you open your eyes to it, you know. And perspective for me has been everything, you know.
And should be for most people. I think that's one of those things that we have started to lack, right? It's not that we're not interested, I think, anymore in other people's perspectives as a whole, as much as we want everyone to facilitate and fall toward ours.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of just going like, oh, that's interesting. Let me dial that into the system and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I think having the thing I've tried to maintain lately is like having more questions than answers. That's just been a big one for me. It's just like, because I see people and they're like, they have an answer for something. And I'm like, man, it must be nice to be so sure.
Right.
Like you're just hell bent on this is the right answer. Whereas I'm like, I wonder if that's actually, you know, what's accurate or how, or better yet, like, how do I know this to be true? You know, these questions I feel like we don't ask enough instead of just rolling right into it full steam.
I think that's really important, man. Like, you know, especially in your line of work, you know, where I think a lot of guys look at this, especially from a civilian standpoint, and think it's, you know, good versus bad in whatever. And the perspective isn't that.
Yeah.
You know, and so having an open mind to it.
Yeah. Work-wise, I mean, not just work-wise, even like work-wise in the sense of like one of the things I'm doing on the side right now is I kind of work with a group of guys as they transition and whoever comes to me. It just kind of happens. It's nothing informal. A lot of times I get a phone call and I'd be like, hey, B, like, I got a guy, he's not doing so hot. Can you help him out? And so we'll start working, and so much of like the problems are either certainty or the fact that they're not willing to take a lifeline, you know, because their perspective is this. And one of my first things to guys is just like, hey man, like, I understand like meditation is not what you want, but if it works, who are you to say no?
Yeah. And it's, man, the older I've gotten, and especially along the lines back to what I was saying earlier of like, I was lied to about the dangers of things. And so now, you know, me, the way I operate equals, you know, I try to go off of logic. And so now I'm aware you've lied to me. So what else have you lied to me about?
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, trying to figure out breath work and figure out perspective or meditation or whatever meditation works for you. The sitting quiet in a room, not my cup of tea. I need to make the machine busy doing a task I don't need to think about. Yeah. Like for the mindfulness approach to clear up the head.
No, I get it. And I think that's the thing though, is just, it's us being able to ask the questions well enough or to find out and explore like, hey, this works for me, whatever it is, meditation, you know, if you're going to take it down the psychedelic route, because not everything's going to work for us. Right.
Nope.
It's just like I kind of like suffering. Right. But now that I'm out of the Army, I don't want to run 26.2 miles. No, it's not up my alley. So what's the thing that's going to help move me forward? You know? And so I constantly just kind of come at it with like, if I can ask better questions, I get better answers.
It's true.
You know, and I think that's kind of like the best place to start with whatever we're doing.
You know, another side of that too is making sure that you're not looking for the answers you want.
Oh man.
The confirmation bias that we'll
Yeah.
all lean to.
Yeah.
One for me recently, like yesterday, I spent some time, I was diving into Kevin or Kyle Rittenhouse, the 16-year-old kid. That's a much more interesting story than we've been given.
Yeah.
The media portrayed that as this young alt-right went out and shot BLM protesters.
Yeah.
And then the footage of the incident that was captured on multiple phones, put together throughout the night of the whole thing and what he was doing the whole day and the days before, it tells a much different story. And now I'm very aware this did come from his attorney, and it fucking should. But video footage, I mean, I take it for what it is. Yeah. And there was, this was a kid that had a med pack on him that was prepared to defend himself in a hostile environment, and was out cleaning graffiti, doing things like this, had started a charity to, back police officers for coming forward and talking about troubled issues within the force. And I mean, he's the scenes I see, man, he's defended himself from it. It's a fucking ugly situation. And part of me is like, man, you didn't have to be there, but you also have the right to be there.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I've said my piece to a couple of people about this. I think the guy legally, if you look at some of these legal experts, whatever else, they're saying he's going to get off scot-free. And I have no thought on it one way or the other. My thing is like, on a larger perspective, right? Dealing with a lot of 18-year-old males and 21-year-old males. There's a lot of guys out here who want to find out if they have that thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't want to join the military.
Of course.
So with the pressure cooker that we have right now, what better way to find out? What better way? And I got buddies, they call it LARPing. I'm not going to go that far.
But that's not a fucking big stretch, right? And like, with that said, I also can fully see that perspective of it. And I mean, look, I don't believe this kid is an innocent in any way, shape, or form. And I believe there's a lot of victim of circumstance of, man, you decided to put yourself in a very compromised situation, and the consequences that you were hoping for were not what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that you don't get to pick that it goes that way.
But as the thing goes, right? Like you're, who was it? I think it's Tim Ferriss. The thing, he's like the choice before the choice or some shit.
Yeah.
Like if you make it, the decision, you can make a decision that's going to eliminate 1,000 other decisions.
Right. And then at some point, can you trace it back to a decision you made would have got you out of this situation? Then take responsibility for that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're there and you show up and things happen, like that's exactly what happens. You should be expecting that. It's like I'm seeing a lot of guys that are like upset about this or that in reference to these protests or an innocent person getting caught up in it. And I'm just like, like there's a level of situational awareness that has to come. Like, do I drive through DC on a Saturday knowing what's going on right now?
Right.
If I'm not interested, and I'm not saying you should change your life for it, but at the same time, like you have a level of responsibility to yourself.
Well, so like we went on this big 8-week road trip this summer and drove around quite a bit. And so we made our way up to the Pacific Northwest, and I had at that time had some other stuff that I was planning to do within like the Bay Area. But because of unrest, I guess for a lack of better terms, I chose not to drive my large black full drive vehicle into one of these cities to avoid conflict and also avoid me having to explain, like, I agree. I agree with you. Please stop looking at my truck and me as though I'm anti any of this.
Yeah.
I'm pro logic.
I mean, man, I think that's the big thing right there. Pro logic and nuance, man. And no one wants
nuance is the big one, right?
Yeah. I mean, just to be able to sit down and have a conversation and say, this is this, it's funny. the older I get, I find myself dealing with like younger soldiers or guys that are whatever, and it feels like I'm like the mediator. You know, I'm like, hey, hey, like, did you ever think about it like this? You know, because a big one, you know, there's a meme going around with the NBA players kneeling. Mm-hmm. And then it's below it is soldiers saluting, and it's something about like, we don't salute so you can whatever. Anyways, just kind of down on the NBA players. And one of the things I was telling my buddy, I was like, you know, I'm not even going to talk about the NBA piece or anything else. What I'm going to say to you as a veteran or as a soldier or whatever is, you got bigger fish to fry, right? If you're not a veteran right now,
like freedom of speech, man, that's part of the gig. And yeah, I do believe in what the general message that we're standing up for is, and that message with at the very base of what BLM is to me. Mm-hmm. Is that I am aware that Black people in my country were not awarded the same opportunity, not just from a poverty standpoint or the obvious opportunities that come from the infinite amount of variables that can happen within your life.
Yeah.
But that we systematically put things in place that were hurdles that I didn't have to deal with. That to me is a problem. From the very just simplest basic place. That to me, I disagree with and want to fix it.
I agree. I don't think there's a problem with it at all. I think there's some things that come in and get hijacked. And this is one of the part of the conversation we had yesterday. It was just like, hey, like, you know, there are people who are hijacking a message or a thought or an idea that is really hard to be against. But what people are doing is they'll shift it into that whole like, well, these guys are doing this and they're looting and burning. Like, hold on, we're talking about this right here. And then in the sense of the greater sense of things, it's like, why wouldn't any American want better policing?
Right.
Why wouldn't why wouldn't you want these things, right? Like we have, I think there's a book called 3 Felonies a Day.
Okay.
And it talks about the average American commits 3 felonies a day and has no idea because there's so many laws on the books.
Oof. Fascinating.
And yeah. And so I keep trying to like layer this information with people when I'm having these conversations. I'm like, so even if you don't want to say like, because, you know, people will come and say, well, the stats say this and stats say that. And I'm like, all right, well, fine. I'll cede you all your points. And I'm going to tell you, like, why wouldn't you want better policing? Why wouldn't you want probably some more streamlined laws, right? You know, I had a buddy who's a cop, and his thing is he told me, he's like, dude, if I want to pull you over, all I gotta do is follow you long enough, and you're gonna do something
you'll do something wrong.
Is illegal.
Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna do something you don't know is illegal, and that's it. And so again, if we're at this point, like, come on, man, like let's move forward. But the point I was saying about the thing with veterans, and I would like all my fellow veterans, whether they believe in what I have to say or not, is like, we have bigger fish to fry, man. Like maps. Why aren't we talking about maps? Why aren't we talking about the VA? Why aren't we talking about the fact that there are guys who are committing suicide outside of the VA? Yeah. You know, why aren't we asking these problems to be fixed instead of talking about a fellow American who has a beef and wants to be heard?
Yeah.
That's it. You know, and not only that, like, I can ignore your beef if I really want to, because again, I have other fish to fry. I got beef. Problems, man. Yeah, I got other problems. You know, personally, like I think there's a problem, man. But you know, I'm gonna do the things I can, right? So one of the side gigs, yeah. So one of my new side gigs, man, is I will be working with some police in Maryland, doing some training and just trying to make sure they put themselves in better situations.
Man,
and it's not like I have all the answers.
We should do. No, but that's not the point. Progress isn't this black and white situation that we've all decided everything has to be like, well, I need 100% of the answers now, when let's just chip away at some fucking progress for a while and do better. And not only that, as we're doing better, let's take some time to look and say, yeah, we fucked this up. Let's make another move. But we currently don't have leadership that admits it ever makes a mistake or says they're sorry, right?
Yeah.
And the American people follow. And so that's why we have Karens and we have all this, is because if we're not going to get that type of empathy and that type of compassion and understanding, or just admitting that I fucked up from the top, it's not going to trickle down.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, man. I think if you're in a leadership position, I want to get one of the first things you should be learning is this is my fault.
Everything. Right.
But I mean, it's not even a leadership thing. I mean, yeah, we'll say a leadership, lead yourself, right? Like even in your life, like I'm saying, like everything's my fault and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
The reason why I found myself in the amount of pain I found myself in previously, man, was because of that. I shied away from pain. I walked away from pain that, you know, if it wasn't the army or the physical fitness type pain, I shied away from it.
Just weeding your own garden per se, right?
Oh man, yeah. And then once I decided to say, okay, these are my problems. I caused them. You're right. I woke up in the morning, looked in the mirror and said, oh shit, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's different.
So, yeah. You got to lead yourself. So we will call it a leadership thing. Take responsibility. It's my fault. The same thing if you're in a position with your like I you know, I hate to tell tales of school, man, right? Because I'm not a soldier anymore. I don't wear a uniform, but I was in charge of a bunch of people at one point in time. And one of the things that I come to really understand was like, when you're in charge of this amount of people, it's your fault.
Of course it is.
It has to be.
Of course it is, right? Do you know how fucking crazy it would be if I started blaming issues that I have with my company on another company's boss?
Exactly.
Who's never worked for me. May not even fucking know I exist. Do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And that's the thing. And not only that, like you can't fix it if it's everybody else's fault, whether it's a relationship,
exactly right.
It's you or whatever. So
well, you haven't made any mistakes. What's there to fix?
Yeah, it's nothing to fix. Not my problem. So that's one of the big things, man. I just, you know, I think if we could find some more people who are willing to take ownership in their own shit, you know, you tend to start moving forward.
I agree. I think accountability and responsibility, I think, are at a very low point in our culture. And, you know, I don't have enough experience globally to make any sentiment about it elsewhere, but,
yeah,
you know, control what I can. And I'm aware that me personally, and I've described this a lot to people, and I take a responsibility in this vein, is that if I was going to lend you my vehicle and you got into an accident, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
Because I lent you the keys to my car. At some point, that's my decision.
Yeah.
If I was to borrow your car and get into an accident, I'll fix it because I took the keys and I assumed responsibility of that car.
Yeah, 100% agree, man.
I can handle me. This way I'm not a victim. I can't point the finger and wait for someone to disappoint me. I'll own it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you were to crash my car and you're like, holy shit, I'll fix it. I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to force
it. But that's how the situation ideally should go, right?
Right.
The situation is, again, I just like you said, I'm controlling me, you're controlling you, and then we meet in the middle somewhere, and that's how things happen.
Yeah, and then or I learn that you're not someone I should lend a car to.
Yeah, I'm a shitty driver.
Perfect. You don't have car shit from me ever again. That's the lesson learned, and I'll own it and go forward, right?
Yeah. I'll drive you. No.
Yeah. Right. That type of responsibility would be, it's just such a healthier spot to be because you're in control and you're not letting someone else make that emotional decision for you. But it's hard to translate to people.
I think, I don't know if it's the way people grow up or what happens, man. But like I said, like a lot of the guys that I talk to, at the end of the day, that's what's happening. It's always a finger being pointed, and it's never being pointed at in the right direction. That, and then I'll say this too, to kind of move away, but stay in the same vein, is awareness. Everybody wants to be aware right now, and this is kind of a personal piece I have. Is I'm tired of awareness. I want action on all things. You get what I'm saying? Like, we're so aware. We're talking about it like I think this is Mental Awareness Month or Mental Health Awareness Month or something like that. And so I got it. And now my answer to people is like, and my answer to myself is, how many times a week am I picking up the phone and calling my buddies that I know aren't doing well? How many times a week am I scheduling a thing where I can get together with my friend who I know is by himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how do we take action, whether that is, literal police reform or your buddies, your friend that is 60 pounds overweight. You know what I mean? Like, you can't make them do anything, but I sure as hell can invite you on a walk.
That's exactly right. Dude, it's as simple as checking in with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, I just wanted to reach out. Last time we spoke, you seemed a little off. I just wanted to make sure you're good. Yeah, I care.
Yep, that's it, man. My relationships matter more to me the older I get, just because I realize what happens. And then not only that, man, like, both of us are around the same age. So we're at that age now where people start dropping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you start realizing, like, time is so finite,
Yeah, damn right it is.
One of the guys I looked up to for my entire military career, just gone. Like nothing. The guy, and this is kind of my thing with time is like, so this guy lived this crazy life, was in war for 20 years, retired, had PTSD, went and got that fixed. And the last time I talked to him, he goes, I'm feeling 100% better. He just went through this big intensive therapy, everything else. And then literally 2 weeks later, man, it wasn't suicide or anything like that. Just had an accident.
Just had an accident, right.
And yep, had an accident. And it was one of the biggest wake-up calls I've ever had. And I was like, oh, that trip I've been putting off?
We should go.
I'm not putting it off anymore. Yeah, we should go now. Yeah. Like, and so if you ever see the things I post on social media, so much of it is about that, because I've seen too many guys just get snuffed out, extinguished. And now, they're not here, or here's a big one, regret.
That's a tough one too, man. And I've thought about that a lot, and I think about just the way that, like, I choose to live my life and been pretty open about, especially that, like, my idea of happiness and perfect life for me is to be able to spend as much of the last of the days I have left, which I don't know how many it is, but it's X. And every day is X minus 1. And I want to spend as much of that time doing the things that make me happy, that make me better, that make me feel better, that help me influence other people to do more, to show that there is this other side to it, to embrace that the clock is ticking instead of fear.
That's all you can ask, man. Yeah, I think is you and I have a lot of the same things in common there, man. Like, my big thing is I just want to be the example, and then take as many people as I can with me on whatever journey that is, man. Because, like you said, like, time, like, we have no clue.
Dude, look, there's no guarantee I survive today. Exactly. I don't know what the percentage chance is, but it isn't 100 that I survive today.
Yeah.
And so that makes it a chance.
And I think the thing is, what we're trying to do, or at least what I'm trying to do, is I know that clock is ticking. And at the end of every day, I want to be able to be like, okay, like, we're okay. I'm not trying to leave today.
Yeah.
But if I have to, everything's in order. If I have to, everything's in order. We're good to go. And the people I know, they know that they're cared for, that they were loved, and that I'm trying. It's funny. I talked to Tate, not a lot, but I talked to him enough. And
Fletcher?
He's
a great guy.
Dude, Tate hit me one day with, and it's funny because he says a lot of things very eloquently, and then sometimes he says something that's super simple, and I think that sticks with me more. He said, just try. And I was just like, I just need you to try. And so I've really just come to just think of that, like, oh, just text and say, hey, brother, miss you.
Yeah.
How you doing?
That just try thing. And that's, back to as black and white as we want all of the answers to be for everything, that I think it's easy to look at this idea that our two options are X and X. And right now it is either what we're currently doing or defund police, right? Like these are our two fucking options when like, why don't we just try to do better, you know, and accept that, you know, and give people the leniency, right? That like, look, maybe someone is, you know, making a post about saving fucking turtles from drinking straws or whatever the current social thing is that makes them want to implement some bit of change in their life that is a positive. There's no negative to using less plastics.
Yeah.
And instead of us pointing out the fallacy in whatever decision this person's making is, maybe go, that's a +1. And that's all it is. It's a +1. And maybe that trickles into other aspects of their life that they do other big decisions, but don't discredit the attempt to try better. But like, you're not doing X, Y, and Z. If you're not going to give it, you know, 100% attention and then, you know, also never use unsustainable products the rest of your life, like why even bother with the straws? Like, it's better. It's a try.
We want to move one step forward. Can we move one step forward? And not just that, man, you know, in just trying to move one step forward, man, it's like, I think I heard you say it. It was somebody was talking about like, you just move one step until you can't figure it out anymore.
That's it. And then figure out your left or right, or do you need to backtrack to figure out forward again?
You know, and sometimes the answer too, I think, sometimes the answer just sucks.
Also true.
And no one wants to deal with that, man. It's like, I worked at this place once when I was in the military, and smartest people I ever met in my life. I am not that smart. And these guys, I'm working with guys that have 6 and 7 languages. Let's put it to you like this. On a Friday, I would go up to the guys and be like, hey guys, what are you guys going to do on Friday? And they'd be like, we're going to coding club. And I'm like, what the coding? That's real?
Yeah.
Like, I'm used to soldiers where it was like Friday night, girls, booze, like I'm gonna spend all my money. Yeah. I'm gonna spend all my money on beer and girls this weekend right now.
That's the plan.
And that's what I was used to. And then I got here and these guys were like, we're going to coding club. And I'm like, this is a real thing. But one of the things that I found there is like, sometimes you're so smart or you're so interested in proving you're smart that you miss solving the problem. And sometimes solving the problem is just getting the axe and chopping the tree down. That's it.
Look, one of the biggest problems with knowing everything is you can't learn anything new. And so at some point you got to admit you don't fucking know what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
With going to the coding club and in along that line, I'm assuming this is more toward the artificial intelligence stuff that you're currently working with.
Yeah. Well, so I worked for the NSA when I was in the military. I shouldn't say I worked for them. I was in a leadership position when I was in the Army for the NSA.
Okay.
And by far the smartest dudes I ever worked with in my life. And it was just a complete shift for a guy who spent most of his time in special operations or the regular military. And I went there and I was just like, holy smokes, these people exist. It's like I had a guy, I had to send you a picture of it. In his wall, I go in his room and on his wall is a spider map of his life. And it's broken into categories. It's like physical fitness, women, job, school, and it covers his entire wall, man. And it is just like planned out, like it's insane. It looks like something you'd see on a movie.
Yeah, crazy person.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a guy who learned Korean over like a month. And not
he's operating at a brain level I'm not capable of understanding.
Man, I'm having problems with English, brother.
Look, as much as I'd love to interview like an Elon Musk, I realize I ain't the man for that job. That's basically me going, computers, right? And he's like, yes.
Yeah. And so that was my insight into that whole world.
Just a different way the brain operates.
Yeah.
At that level. Now, working with the DoD on that, are you guys trying to defend against other artificial intelligence, or are we developing our own?
So the program that I work for, is the easiest way to put it is, there's so much data right now. It's really hard as a guy who's done Intel before, but just, I mean, even if we're thinking about it from a normal, we'll say powerlifting perspective, right?
Sure.
Think about all the data that's out there.
There'd be tons.
And I wanted to just say, Matt wants to answer one problem. You got to comb through all that data first.
Yeah.
And so that's the gist of it. This thing is, but I will tell you, it's from my perspective, because really my job there is to be the guy who helps train people how to use it better, and also to kind of have some insight from a guy who's been on ground and also a guy who's done Intel, and say, maybe we should do this instead.
Now, after that job, does that change the direction and say that you would use social media and the way you can look at the way data is interpreted, or what you choose to share? Okay. Or how much you choose to share, for that matter.
So everything, so working in the fields that I've worked in, man, what I will say about social media, and I choose to be pretty transparent and pretty open, because it's super hard not to.
Yep. Well, and I mean, of course, right. I believe being open personally and emotionally, but how, like, are you more aware at the idea of, like, I'm not interested in you being able to figure out where I live?
Well, that's kind of what I mean, though. Is okay. Like, it's already there.
Yeah.
To aggregate data is there. It's just whether you're
pretending you're not geotagging it makes the difference is an incorrect idea.
It's really just on how hell-bent you are on it. If you wanted to do it, I'm sure you could get away with it, but I would just tell you it's a lot harder than it used to be.
Yeah.
If you're not some Haimo Korth character living in the Anwar, who didn't even know 9/11 happened when it happened, like, you could probably get away with a lot. But if you're in the burbs, you're in most places, there becomes a thing where the absence of data means something.
Yeah. I think so. What I was watching the other night, and I guess, just looking at what technology is making jumps to, and I mean, look, man, I've been dumping extra cash into Facebook stock, as I believe it's a shit social media, but I believe what Facebook has that's valuable is they own Instagram, and what they own is a decade worth of everyone providing photos of themselves.
Well, not just that, man. I mean, information is the currency today.
Well, not only that, but just as far as the facial recognition software in the future goes.
Oh, yeah.
How would you say you get most of the people on earth to give you 10 years of photos so that they can see you in every style of dress you've ever had, glasses, not glasses, facial hair, like, and they'll just provide it for free? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. It's real popular sentiment right now. Like, I think because of the Social Dilemma, I haven't watched it yet, but Ryan Holiday put in his book a long time ago. He was like, if you're not paying for he's like, if you're not paying for a service, you're the product.
Yep.
And
that's true, right? That's dead on.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand from this is the perspective that, I see people realize that and look, take out the nefarious side of it. They're simply using the data that you give to make their platform work better, to give you more information that seems like you're interested in at the base level. And they don't have a feeling about the data you're giving them. It's just data. It's like, oh, these people wake up at this time. They also stop looking at their phone at this time. This is the places they go every day. These are the things they're interested in. Oh, we can see the purchases they make, X, Y, and Z, right? I don't understand that you choose to take part in that and signed an agreement, and then you want that company to regulate what information that you share with them that they should decipher through as I can look at and can't look at. You want them to big brother it instead of you take the accountability and be like, maybe I shouldn't share every purchase I make.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes with the whole thing, man. I have 4 kids, man, and watching my 2 youngest on social media as I'm reading Irresistible, as I'm watching The Social Dilemma happen, and as I'm interacting with dudes that are 20 years younger than me and watching like how they're interacting, and I'm like, oh, this is for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're doing that and you're watching the whole thing go down, you start asking, like, again, you ask better questions, get better answers. Like, do I really, again, and I'm in charge of my own shit. So why am I asking you to curate my stuff? This is for me.
That's again, it's just this other, like, of course, that's what we want is save us from us.
Yep. And it's like, you know, I got out of that game. I got out of that, you know, I got out of that blame game. And for me, it's like, all right, well, I put this out on the internet. I do this. And you know, there's always, everything costs, everyone pays.
There's always a cost.
You know,
no, there's credits and deposits is the way I've heard it described. And even physically, right? That, like, I know for me, because I'm a bit compromised with my body, I got only so many credits I can spend every day. And if I'm not making deposits with tissue work and keeping my diet together and hydration and doing all that, I have less credits. Yeah.
And it comes back. It comes back, man. And that's the same thing here. I think, you know, so it keeps coming back, man. Like, you know, just having that accountability for yourself, making sure you're moving forward and not asking somebody else to do that work for you. You know, I with social media, I try to be really cognizant of what I'm consuming more than anything else.
That's,
like I said, for
me,
that's
the part we can control.
Yeah, because for me, like I said, like I kind of know what's going on. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert, but I think it's to the point now where, like, if you're on social media and you're in.
Yep.
You're in. So you can say all this thing.
I think it's tough now to pretend ignorance. Like I think what we're talking about, like this, you know, tribal guy in the middle of the, you know, Anwar or wherever have you, they can be ignorant. They don't fucking know. They haven't had a TV. They don't have radio. They don't have any of this, right? Like, their whole world exists in this 3-mile radius. I have all of the information of forever. All the books, both sides.
Yep.
Choosing to not educate yourself is a choice.
Dude, I've been saying this for a long time, man. Like, the internet's for more than fucking porn and cat videos.
It's great at those too, but there's so much out there.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it, you know.
No.
But like, if you come to me and you have a problem or a suggestion, you know, and you haven't decided to do any bit of the due diligence on your own, it's kind of like, what are you saying? Like, what are you really saying to me? It's like we're starting a warpath or even hate. Like, you know, there's a lot of information out here. There's a lot. And so, well, you're always going to have somebody who's just going to jump the line and say, hey, man, like, and they're going to ask all their questions, which is fine.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like, you probably could have formulated a better question.
Right.
Because you could have took the time.
The fucking Bonnie and I talk about it. Like, so I got bored the other night and then I ordered this, like, a galaxy light. It's like a $50 thing off of fucking Amazon that puts weird colors on the ceiling and some star patterns, right? Very entertaining. And she posted a video of us laying in bed with it on the other night and probably got 100 direct messages about, where did you find galaxy lights? And it's like, yo, you could have just typed that into fucking Google. Like, help yourself.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because I'll do it. You know,
you catch yourself. You're like, no, where'd they come from? And you're like, fucking internet. The answer is always the internet.
It's got it. You know, it's funny. I saw a shirt. I think it was on Rogan, and it was nuance over bullshit.
Dude.
And and my initial reaction was to be like, I'm gonna message, and I was like, wait a minute.
Right. I could just type the name of the shirt in, and if I want to find it, I'll probably find it. Yeah,
it'll come up. So, you know. It's the same, man. You have all this stuff, and it's funny, man. Like I said, like my oldest is 21, and then working with dudes that are 20 years old, 24, 26, you know, and I'll get these messages sometimes, or I get calls, you know, ask a question. I'm like, dude, you could have done this on your own. You could have done this on your own, you know. But I'm not mad, because at the same time, man, like I want to be able to help as many dudes as I can. So
yeah, and sometimes, you know, depending on the person you're talking to, sometimes that help is being more aggressive to say, you can do this on your own.
That's for sure.
Sometimes that is the help.
Yep. You know, it's funny you say, because it's funny you say that, man. Like one of the guys that I constantly kind of work with, he hit me up the other day and he goes, I didn't want to call you. And I was like, why? And he was like, because you're going to tell me the truth.
Yeah. It sounds like the intro to that Good with Jocko, right? That
yeah.
It's like, I didn't want to say something because I know what your answer is. What's my answer? You'd say good. Yeah. It's like, well.
Yeah. He goes, you know, he's having a problem with his lady and everything else. And I was just like, you know what the answer is, right? And he's like, no. I was like, well, here it is, man. You do this. And he was just like, I knew you were going to say that. You know, the entire time. And I was like, but that's kind of, I think, where you want to be in helping people.
I think so.
You want them to know, like, yeah, you know, you want them to know, like, hey, you can come to me for anything, but don't expect it to be sugar-coated.
Well, I think we're at a point in our evolution as a culture that it's not simply that we should teach people how to fish instead of just fishing for them, but we have to teach people why we fish. Yeah. Like, I think that's the part that locks it in more than the mechanical side of here's how to fish. Like, we need to know why we're doing things. I know me growing up as a kid, anytime I ever got in trouble, it was always why. You know, I needed explanation. I wanted to know why. The answer of because just never fucking worked for me.
Yeah.
And it was always like, look, if this is such a big fucking deal that I'm being yelled at about it, I need to know the details behind why this is such a big deal, other than it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I still operate that way.
I think that's a good place to operate from, though, right? Like, why and having that driving factor kind of matters, man. Like, you know, I think those are just good questions to ask. Like, where's your level of risk? Where's your comfort level?
Right.
And like how you do something. Like, I worked for a guy for a long time who's probably the most risk averse man I've ever met. And I was like, this is not the business for risk aversion, my friend.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And we just had two completely different schools of thought, because I'm not a very risk averse man. I'm more of a like, well, we're jumping. All right, we'll
TikTok.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Like,
yeah,
you know. And then did we die? No, we didn't. Like, cool, let's figure it out.
Success.
let's do it better next time. You know, but you know, that's one of those things, man, where it's just like you find yourself. How do people get there? I don't understand. You know.
Look, I think that's just, there's a lot of fear based. There's a lot of people that make a lot of decisions based on fear, and fear's not a great motivator. It'll
keep you there. It'll keep you right where it'll keep you fearful.
Yes,
that's what it'll do.
But being, you know, avoiding things, or avoiding bad times, or avoiding discomfort, or avoiding conversations that make you uncomfortable. Man, I remember going in with like surgeries, or even through the course of my divorce, and knowing that there were going to be these challenging conversations that had to take place, right?
Yeah.
And man, it is easy to not want to have that talk today.
Man,
or wait for the right time.
I got divorced in 2017.
Okay.
And it's exactly what you're saying. Like, so many of my problems, again, were just from that. Like, don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to upset someone. Yep.
This is coming in 2 weeks and we can't. Yeah. It sucks, but that's part of the reality of it when you're in that long term of a thing, and there's other things that factor other than just you. And so I just remembered trying to have some clarity in that. I was like, look, this sucks, but you only have to do today once.
Yeah.
We don't have, if we quit fucking around with this, we don't have to do today again unless we cower back from where we know we are.
Yeah. And man, I think that whole piece, and then being able to also recognize that there's a bottom, right? Like when you recognize that there's a bottom and you can see it, not saying you have to touch it, but the fear gets moved, it gets eliminated a bit, right? It's like, oh, I can be broke. I don't want to. I don't want to. If I don't have to, I sure as hell I'm not going to. But I can do it if I have to.
Dude.
Oh, I can start over.
I got hit with one yesterday that I guess over the last couple of days that I haven't been aware of my feelings on it. And my hip is not playing along. It's a little shitty. And so we got some x-rays done a while back. And I was talking yesterday with a chiropractor I work with on stuff like that. And, showing him kind of the issues that I basically don't have any internal or external rotation on my right leg. Ooh. And so as soon as that knee tries to move in, like the whole back and everything, hip pulls that direction. And so I'm continuing to work my ass off at like soft tissue work, trying to get things to loosen up, trying to do things. And he's like, well, the issue is that you have arthritis on the head of your femur and there's nowhere for it to go. This isn't a soft tissue issue. This is mechanical. And I know that there's steps before hip replacement, right? Like this isn't surgery number one. Yeah. But the idea of having a hip surgery to clean this out, man, my knee was supposed to be an ACL.
Yeah.
That's the most common knee surgery on the fucking planet. And I have a fake knee now. Yeah. So like the risk of the devil I don't know versus the one that I do, of like, okay, so my currently my hip is stiff. I'm running better. I'm lifting. I'm doing these things, but it's always stiff and I'm always uncomfortable. It's not the pain my knee had. It's tolerable, but it isn't cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm so fucking terrified of surgery to go back down that route. And because if things go the same direction, like I don't know that I can do it again.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I've got the strength to go that dark again and be okay. Yeah. And so fucking scares the shit out of me, man. And that's one of those fear-based things that like, what do we choose?
Yeah, I completely get it, man. And that's one of those things again, like, and it rounds right back to like, everything costs, everyone pays. What are you willing to pay? What are you willing to pay? Are you
right now? That risk is not worth the reward.
Exactly. And I think those are the questions you have to ask. It's like, all right, well, this is coming up, and yep, willing to pay it. If it sucks and goes wrong, I got that one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you run up to it and you go, nah, that's not worth it.
Right. You know, look, I'm not bitter about the knee. I had 9 surgeries that, 8 that didn't go well. But these were elective surgeries. I showed up. I asked the doctor. You know what I mean? He didn't do a bad fucking job. It's bad luck. Maybe this was the time the universe needed me to learn those lessons. And maybe this was the best way for me to actually retire from my sport instead of fucking milking it out for another 5 years and getting considerably worse at it and building depression that way. Or
completely tearing the whole system down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things, man, like not to get all woo-woo, but like, I think that those are lessons that we have visited upon us for a reason.
Well, look, I love the woo-woo stuff. But I also love the savagery of stuff. I love that mind. I like both. I want both to be 100%. Considered in my head. I want to think about both options. And one of the problems I have with the woo-woo community is it tends to be softer than I care for.
Yeah.
And there tends to be less accountability. Well, the people that are bad at it tend to have less accountability to me. And it's just like, well, if you believe in something, I'm like, yo, that's not a fucking reason that a thing works.
You still have.
It can't all be placebo for you to tell me that, like, well, if you believe in it, like, no, man. Like me putting crystals on my knee aren't going to fix it.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
not
amount
going
of
to make
prayer
me,
or meditation that fixes this knee.
yeah, it's not going to make me any stronger today or any better. Like the belief is a start, but it's not where the magic is.
No, the magic with psychedelics to me were the accountability.
Yeah.
And empathy.
Yeah.
And so you get both sides of the coin that are empathy and gratitude. Very, very, to me, those hit really hard.
And see, that's something that I'm really interested in, man, because I'll be the first to tell you, I am jealous of people who wake up grateful. Right? It's a thing I had to work at, right? Be it because I was blessed with awesome parents, or didn't realize how amazing my situation was, or whatever, or because things came easy.
Yeah.
Right? Certain things have come easy for me. I can't complain, man.
Dude, I'm with you. I understand. I've had some skills that I was able to, for whatever reason, my compass landed on and I leaned into them.
Yep. And that's it. And so 2016, 2017, all those things happening and having to be and learn like, oh, I should be grateful for this. Right. And so, it was talking about, I've put it on my social media before, like October 16th, 2016, I was going to kill myself. 100%, man. Fucking, I was balls in. And I got a phone call probably, I don't know a time before, but I was on my way. Right. And got a phone call, no hi, no hello, no nothing. Hey, what's up, man? How are the kids?
Fuck.
Instant reset. And I was like, holy shit, like what am I
gotta
doing?
Call you back.
Yeah. And so I spent the night on a beach in Hawaii. Woke up and realized, I was like, something's got to change. Right. So I say, like, I'm spending all this time running away from stuff. And I had a friend at the time who called me out. He's like, all you're doing is moving away from pain. You're shying away from it. And instead of moving towards it and confronting it and being like, you do this with everything. You move towards it. And then in your personal life, what you're doing is moving away from it.
Right.
Take the lessons. The lessons there.
It's easy to think that moving away from it is getting some freedom, but it's such short term that you're boxing yourself in, because that monster's growing and it's chasing you.
Oh yeah.
You're never going to get away from it.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a little Jordan Peterson thing I saw the other day. He's like, it's better to fight the dragon in this lair than for it to come to your village.
Yo. Yeah.
And I was like, that is it right there, 100%. And so now, my thought is, this doesn't feel good. Let's move towards it. Let's figure it out. You can always, there's an option to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
There's an option to turn around.
Yeah.
But we should move towards it. Like, what's the worst that'll happen? Like, I've been broke before. I've been to the point where I don't want to do this. Like, really don't want to do this. Yeah. So, when I say bottom, like, that's what I mean. Like, once you see it, you're like, oh, I don't want to come back here. No. But now that I know what's in this town, like, we're good. And
yeah.
I can now start being grateful, looking at ways to be more grateful, have more empathy, have more, just the ability to, just like I said, at the end of the day, well, what do we want? We want to move it better. We want forward progress. And I want to take some people along with me.
Man, that shift in perspective, right? Like I think about the way I look at things now versus the way I would have. And I've had a couple friends, kind of similar instance with suicide, that ended up not making the decision. And for whatever the reason or catalyst was that altered the direction that day. I really like the thought experiment, if nothing else, of the infinite timelines. And,
yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I like that. I like the concept that there is an infinite versions of me. There is the worst version of me that's junkie, strung out in a gutter, being a shit person to everyone he's ever met and filled with anger. And then there's the best version of me that's out there. If it's out there, why not just be that one?
Yeah.
And then
it's true, man.
Right. And then on top of it, like, because of the shifts in the timeline, I look at that, like what you said, and like, just so happens that you are on the timeline that got the phone call. There's a bunch of other timelines that didn't.
It didn't. And
right?
It's something I never think of it like that, but it's the same thing for me, right? Like same, but different.
And so if you're on the timeline that got that phone call or whatever changed your direction that day from making that decision, dude, you're on borrowed time.
Exactly.
This is a free game. It's a free play now.
And
you're not even supposed to fucking be here. Do whatever you want.
And that's kind of where Warpath came from, where making these trips came from, calling people that I don't know.
Yeah.
Friends, family, you know, whoever, and just saying like, hey man, you know, I don't want shit from you, but this is the deal. Like I'm trying to have a good time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, and part of that good time is you also got to know some shitty times, right? And
you don't get both sides of the coin, dude. Because look, if everything's great, nothing's great.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
only great because you have a reference to now is not great. You know, what's it? It's a movie, Lucky Number 11. It's one of my favorites, and I love the dialogue in it is really sharp and really fast and very Guy Ritchie film-esque. And there's one where Ben Kingsley's talking, and he's like, you know, lucky and unlucky are only a perspective from a man in the future. Because you only know that you're unlucky now because you felt you were lucky then. And
100%.
Right. And so, you know, I live in a world where the grass is green on both sides of the fence and I do whatever I want. There is no luck. There isn't, you know, it is that I am prepared to make the most of an opportunity that crosses my path when it happens.
Man, I think, and being able to lean into the bad things too, man. Like if you can constantly, like, guys will be like, hey man, like all these things happen to you. How do you stay resilient? And I'm just like, there's a reason these things happen. There's a lesson I learned that made me who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I discard that situation, I'm not here talking to you. Or I'm talking to you and you're the guy who's like, I gotta get the fuck off this phone call with this guy right now.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Or whatever it might be. So like these bad situations, if they happen, they happen. Learn about them, play them to the best of your ability. You only get the cards you got.
That's it.
Play the hell out of that hand, man. Is the best I could do, you know? Because whether these things, like we said earlier, like maybe tonight's the last night.
That's it.
I'm not trying to go to bed with regret.
Get hit by a fucking meteor. I don't know. You know, like, I mean,
I'm not trying to leave anything left for this. You know, there's nothing. I don't want to leave anything left.
I think about people that
say it now.
I think about people that, like, you know, go on a vacation, right? And then have this feeling toward the end of the vacation of like, fuck, we didn't do enough. And now you're hustling to try to shoehorn everything in. I'm not going to feel that way at the end of my life. I won't at the end sit there and be like, fuck, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
Man, it's I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
No, I haven't.
And I reference it to a lot of people, man, because again, you know, stealing from you, saying like, hey man, I'm on borrowed time. And so I started looking at it and I started going like, well, what the hell am I regretting? Or what am I doing that's not for me? You know, because so often, like so many of us are doing something. I have a friend right now, man, and I'm trying to convince him, stop doing these things to make other people happy. You're so
frivolous pursuit, man.
Yeah, you're so unhappy trying to make someone else happy.
What makes other people happy is being around happy people.
Yeah, and so I referenced that book, and it was one of those things. It's just like, I don't want any of those, right? And I would rather spend, and I got balance and everything else, but like I would rather have 3 hours of sleep every night and do all the things that I'm trying to do than be like on my deathbed, like, remember that night we went to bed at 7?
Sure, right?
Like I don't think I haven't been around that many people as they're dying, but I don't think that's the regret.
Or, man, I'm sure glad I put in 60 hours of work all those years.
Exactly.
for a
Man.
company that gave me a fucking watch.
You know, I love my time with the U.S. Army, man. I really do. You know, but I have a conversation with people a lot, and I'm like, so what do you do? You know, the American thing, like, what do you do? Like, whatever.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm working to support my lifestyle. The day of me working because my career is the thing that matters to me, those are gone. You know, and the more I can move towards my vision for warpath and everything else, that's what I want.
Right. And at least the lessons that you've got from military background, from lifting, from being physically active, right? That one of the things I love most about strength is you can't fucking outsource it. You know what I mean? Like anyone I've ever met that has the shape or stature of guys like us, yo, you put in time. Like that wasn't 6 weeks in the gym. Like you've had more bad workouts than most people have had.
It's it's funny, right? A guy hit me up yesterday and he was like, you know, he's talking about the new changes to the Army physical fitness plan and all this other stuff. And we were just talking, and he was asking me about basically how long I've been lifting. And I was like, the longest I've taken off was 45 days, man.
Yeah. Right.
And I was like,
so the difference is I just never quit.
Yeah. It's like, I wish I had found some of these fringe sports earlier. Like, you know, you found Highland Games or power. I didn't find powerlifting until 2 years ago. Not that I would have been some Larry Wheels character or anything. But
no, like, Jesus, there's only one, know, so
yeah, there's only one. Exactly. But you know, at the end of the day, man, there's so much to be learned from the weight room that can be transferred over.
Well, it's time, it's persistence, it's chipping away, it's realizing that effort overrides the specific direction. Like, it isn't the specific program that's right or wrong. It's effort and it's adherence. Are you following a program that you can do forever?
Compliance, right?
Right. That's it. Like, it's consistency, and are you willing to do this forever? Like, I mean, that's why I've said for a really long time, like, look, getting stronger is very, very fucking easy. It's very simple. It isn't easy. Same with nutrition, you know. If you want to get stronger, here's your program. I need you to bench, squat, deadlift, and overhead press moderately heavy once a week for the rest of your life. For 10 years.
It's actually funny. I stole that from you, man. Cause I can't tell you how many guys I've written programs for over the past, however, and then nothing comes of it.
Of course. I stopped.
And I stopped because when you said that, I just started telling guys, I was like, do that. And then at 60 days, like, come talk to me.
Dude, that's exactly right. Like, here's your fucking buy-in. Your buy-in is show me that you'll go to the gym 4 days a week for an hour to do anything for a month.
Yeah.
Do anything you want. I don't give a shit. Want to ride the elliptical, want to go swim, want to lift weights, want to fuck around with dumbbells, want to play with machines. I don't care. Do something for an hour. Build a habit. I need you to build the habit that you'll go to the gym. And if you can't build that, there's no point in me telling you the X's and O's of what to do when you're in there.
Exactly.
In fact, you can't even fuck that part up. Like, just go to the gym and do something is better than what you're currently doing.
It's, you know, and I think even like you probably have the same experience, right? Like, those days you don't want to go to the gym, once you get there, that's the hardest part of the habit, right? Like,
plenty of days like that, man. And then so many of it, especially if I've lowered the bar that day of like, I didn't even want to fucking come. So now anything's better.
Yeah, it's a win.
Yeah, like, cool, man. We did some pull-ups. We did some stretching. Yeah. I feel better than when I got here. Success.
We're in. Yeah. And that, man, I am really big right now on habits and trying to maintain and create more habits that make me a better person and make my life a better situation. And that was another thing, like, out of all the shit that went wrong, was like, I was like, oh, all those conversations my old man had with me about habits make the man. Yeah. You know, he meant it.
Yeah.
You know, the rebellious teenager was like, oh, he didn't know what he's talking about.
Never know what they're talking about.
Yeah, never know. And then all of a sudden you're like, that dude's pretty smart.
Why is it so hard as like as a kid in that age range, you just can't humanize your parents to have ever been young. Like the idea that you're going to sneak and hide things, like, they were kids. Like they're very aware of what you're doing.
I'm lucky, man. My oldest boy listens way more than I did. Like I'll tell him something, and he'll register it, and he'll be like, he'll go and do it.
Well, and like, maybe he has someone who's learned to speak his language better.
Yeah.
And I think that's as much as communication is. It's easy to think the language is just being English, but it isn't. Anyone who's been in a leadership role or a coaching role or any of that, so much of it is saying the same fucking thing 100 times and then watching the light bulb click and go, that's how I get you.
Yeah. Yep. That's 100% true, man. Like there are so many conversations you'll have and somebody won't get it. And then it's just like when you're talking about cues or something, like you say 100 cues and somebody's like, nope. Try and break the bar. Oh.
Yeah, right. Right. And then you go, fuck it. Now I know how to talk to you.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. And I watch my boy, man, and sometimes he'll be like, but he's way more receptive than I was as a teenager. Because as a teenager, I was a kid that was like, nope, you're wrong.
So along 100%. Those lines of like developing habits, what habits have you felt that you've tried to develop that have been really beneficial?
Oh man. So with the guys I work, I'll start here. The guys I work with, man, we have 5 rules. I'll probably fuck them up, but we have 5 rules we try and talk about, right? And basically what we say is like, you can't complain if these things are jacked up. So we look at it like there's the weirdest table on the planet has 5 legs.
Yeah.
But bear with me, right? The less legs you have, the more screwed up you are, right? So good food. Are you eating good, healthy, nutritious food, right? Are you getting 6 hours of sleep or rest at a minimum, right? Maybe not sleep, because dealing with the guys I deal with, sleep ain't a real thing for someone.
Yeah, sleep's not part of that gig. I always love that people try to say that you can't bank sleep. And I'm like, deal with any of our special forces guys and tell them that they can't run hot for 72 hours and then crash for 48.
Man, oh man, there's some stories there, brother. Not just mine, but other people. But yeah, and so we ask about sleep, food. I ask them, have you trained? Right? And by training, I don't even mean like going lifting. Like, did you just take a walk? Do something.
Get something for you.
Yep.
To physically get your heart rate up, to flush the system.
Get out there.
Yeah.
Yep. If you have loved ones or friends, are you hugging, loving, and kissing on them and doing the things that you're supposed to? Are you hanging out with your boys once a week, a couple times a week? And then are you at some point in time still or learning something? And so if you have those 5 things, man, it's like, this is my table right here.
Yeah.
And the more legs I have, the better off I am. And so for me, it's exactly that, man. Like, I know, once upon a time ago, I could eat anything I want. Now I eat a red sauce and I got heartburn, which then turns into, why didn't I sleep 6 hours? So I was up feeling like dog shit.
Yeah.
Right? Then turns into, did you train? Well, I didn't want to because I slept like dog shit. And so it just becomes
it just compounds.
Yeah.
And also being aware that I want that red sauce. I'll deal with the consequences. That's my decision. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're still going to train tomorrow, but we're going to be on less sleep.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, so I asked the guys like, hey, as we're doing this, before you complain, ask those 5 questions. Where your table at right now? Right. So you start asking these questions and your table's all fucked up. You don't get to complain. You get to go home and go to sleep.
No, I remember listening to Tim Kennedy say something very similar, guys that reach out to him and he's helping, dudes with depression or anything else. And he's like, are you training? Are you sleeping? Are you eating good food? Are you fucking?
Yeah.
Why are you coming to talk to me if you're not handling those 4 things that are under your control?
Side note, Tim gave me my first ass whooping ever.
Come on.
Yeah. The very first all Army combatives tournament. I was a kid who grew up with like traditional martial arts.
Yeah.
Taekwondo and Hapkido and all this bullshit. And these guys come to me and they're like, hey, we want you to learn modern Army combatives, which is watered down jiu-jitsu basically.
Okay.
And so I do that for about 3 months prior to the all Army tournament. We're like, you're pretty athletic. You can do this. It's like, sweet. And so I'm doing really well in my small pond.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So we get down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and show up, and there's this name on the board, Tim Kennedy, and we're bracketed, and it's like Bolden versus Kennedy, and everybody's whispering like, "Oh, it's Tim Kennedy," and I'm like,
shit.
No, I don't know who he is.
Yeah,
because I'm not really a UFC fan at this point. I'm just now starting to get into it.
Holy fuck! All right.
You know, and this is before UFC anyway. So I think he was fighting in Pride at the time. Like, he was fighting in Pride and with Chuck and all those guys.
Which is still gnarly. Like it's fucking almost kind of scarier. Yeah. Like the Pride guys are fucking, that's a Wild West.
Yeah. And you got to remember too, this is like fucking probably 05. So iPhones don't come out till 07, right? So like being able to just a quick Google and a thing. So I had to wait till I get back to the hotel room. I look him up and I'm like, Tim Kennedy, and I can't really find anything, but I do see he's a professional fighter. But still being a young cocky kid, what do? You're like,
let's fucking go.
I'll smash him,
dude. I love it. I love it because I've been that dude so many times in different situations.
Man.
Like, fuck you, man. I'll show you. This is how things are gonna go.
I go in. I don't remember how the takedown happens. It happens. I push him off my chest, straight arms. He's the craziest, ballsiest thing. Even now, 10 years later of doing jiu-jitsu, I've never seen somebody die for an arm bar like he did. He just swooped in, misses. He spins around what they call cowboy. And so he's looking towards my feet. And in the video that I saw later, it's like he just, Christmas tree. I got a present. And he knee bars me 47 seconds into the match. And I'm just like, I just made this 6-hour trip to get my ass. But then
like, it's so fast that it's like, I didn't even get to try. I didn't.
No, man. Like I was just like, but then I ended up training at the same gym he trained at for a long time. So you learn a lot of other hard lessons.
I fucking bet, man. He's a go-getter.
So, dude.
Country needs more Tim Kennedys.
I've had a chance to train. It's one of the reasons why I love jiu-jitsu, but I've had a chance to train with some really, really, really incredible people, and that he's on the high end of that list. There's another
That's
guy,
one of those things I'd love to at some point. I'd like to get back to, but I know with my limitations, like I've got to be really careful of who I am working with. Like perfect case scenario, like I would go and train specifically with my buddy Kyle, who's down in Austin. Kyle Kingsbury, because Kyle won't fucking hurt me.
Yeah,
he'll just let me try to learn.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a thing to prove.
That would be a good thing, man. I would tell you, like, I have a buddy who's not similar situation to yours, but he's had multiple everything surgeries. 20 years of jumping out of planes and everything else.
Yep.
And what he does mostly is private. He does mostly privates, and then he'll show up for like Saturday free roll.
Okay.
And then he'll just pick his partners. Like, not one roll with you. You're 20. Get out of here.
Yeah. Dude, I'll stick to like 140-pound girls. Because I'm not trying to play the strength game. I want to learn how to do this because then the strength is valuable.
Yeah. I mean, 100%, man. Like, I haven't rolled in a while because I've been chasing these numbers. And, but I've, like I said, I had a chance to train with some people. Some other, like Tara LaRosa was one of these, before women's MMA was really popular. She was kind of like the big thing. And same thing, she could do what she wanted with me, but I just happened to outweigh her by 60 pounds.
That helps.
So it would be like she has me in an arm bar and I would just wait the clock out.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, like you want to learn the technique in order to get a lot better.
Yeah, that's how I felt going in. It's like, look, man, I know that I've got a gear strength-wise that the other people in the room don't have. Like if you guys are at my strength level, I know your name. That's one of those things, right? Like I know the people on the planet who are strong.
It's always funny. It's funny, right? So when you walk into a jiu-jitsu school, they're always going to be like, "Oh, you're a big, strong guy. Like, wait till so-and-so shows up. Like, once he's here." And that's I had, not to tell a bunch of stories, man, but like, there's a guy in Hawaii, man, and a lot of jiu-jitsu cats know who he is, and a lot of them don't. He's kind of like a legend, right? His name's Kyborg Garcia.
Okay.
He used to be an enforcer for like the surf cruise on North Shore.
All right.
Right. And so I started going to this place. It's just Murderer's Row. It's called Sunset Beach Jiu-Jitsu in Hawaii. And they have like 8 black belts, like I don't know how many brown belts. And they're even the new kids are good. Like you're just getting worked all day. And I show up and they're like, you should roll with Kai. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know who he is.
Right.
I've never heard of him. I've never seen him, even though I think I know a lot about jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, fine, cool. Weeks go by. Finally, he comes in for a night class. Big dude, 6'2", like I don't know, 240.
Big Samoan.
No, I don't know what he is.
Or is he native Hawaiian?
Probably native Hawaiian. I don't know. He's actually, you know what? Apparently, I guess he learned in Torrance when the Gracies first moved out there.
Okay, so he's a white dude, not poly.
Yeah, no, he's not poly. No.
Okay,
and so he.
Because I know those guys would just weigh 400 pounds, but only look like they weigh about 210.
Man,
looking dense, man.
Dude, like those the couple places I've trained out there, man. That's all you just hoss dudes, man. And I'm just like, I'm over here working my ass off, and they're just like, oh, just pick this up real quick. But so I meet Kyborg, and I'm like, or Kai, his real name's Kai, but they call him Kyborg. And I meet him. Yeah, and I'm like, big dude, man. He's like 54. I'm like, oh. Well, that's not gonna be too bad, right? It'll be bad, but it won't be that bad.
That's a lot.
He's
reps.
A black belt.
That's a lot of reps.
He's a black belt, so this is gonna be bad, but it ain't gonna be that bad. I have never been tossed around in my life like that. Worked. Yeah, like I'm moving from side control, and he does this thing where he like posts me up, and he looks at me, he's like, "You good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good." And he just continues to just tap me like a drum. The next like 30 minutes. I remember getting in my car and calling my friends that aren't in Hawaii that do jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, everything I know is a lie. Because this dude is 6'2", he moves like a cat, he's huge, and he just manhandled me. And I was just like, well.
It's a good ego check, right? Like this reality of like,
like, man.
We don't know the depth of this water.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Just another check. I'm like, oh, this is like I probably posted about it or did something that like I was just like that shocked. And then Brian McKenzie is how I actually found out who he was, because like 2 days later, the way the internet works, right?
Yeah, I've known Brian for a number of years. Yeah,
like 2 days later, he posted something about Kyborg Garcia had a heart attack and now he's back to 100%. And I'm like, no shit.
No shit.
No shit, he's 100%. Yeah. He just beat my ass. And
dude, I think your average person is so delusional on their ability. Like your average fan, right? Who either watches the NFL or watches UFC or any of these number of things. My brother is one of the most physically gifted people I've ever met. Like Andy's 6'5", spent most of his time of his life over 300 pounds, played offensive line, Division I at A&M, was an All-American, and then ended up playing a few years in the NFL. Like, was a professional strongman, professional Highland Games athlete. Like, wow, he's got it.
Yeah.
And still is lifting heavy, and his body's not fucked up. Like, it's incredible. He's got it, dude. And to hear him talk about, like, the NFL as, well, I only played for 2 years because I wasn't good enough. And to realize that, like, this mutant, who is the most terrifyingly athletic and big person that anyone will ever meet, most likely, isn't good enough to play in that arena because they're that much better. It's like anyone watching, like, dude, when Ronda Rousey was on the tear and the constant conversations of fucking dudes who have to decide whether or not they could beat her up, which is fucking incredible insecurity coming out anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't want those problems.
No, like, I'm so aware that the only thing I have going for me is a one haymaker punch that I'll never be able to land. Right? Like, that's it. That's the only thing. The crazy scenario where I land something that big and heavy, that's the only win for me. Whereas if I miss that punch, I likely lose the arm.
And for most people that have been doing it for a long time, they're setting you up anyways.
No, dude, I'm getting the fuck
They
away.
just,
I'm leaving the
yeah,
room. Like even the
yeah,
lowest level fighting at the UFC, they'll kill you.
man. After I really got into jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, I started being around a lot of fighters, and that was one of the things that I realized really fast. You know, as all things, right? Like you realize there's levels to this shit.
Yeah. Dude, that's
And
what
I
got me from working
remember,
in bars and doing all that. I remember like looking at stuff and like there was a guy that we worked with who was like 140 pounds and had been training MMA. It's not like he was fucking good. He was just the
yeah,
only person we'd known in 2004 who was training. And so
yeah,
I remember looking at him and just feeling like, and I'm 290-ish at the time, 280. And I'm like, oh man, he would feed me my teeth. I need to not be in this line of work because I
yeah.
would highly underestimate that guy right there and I would pay dearly for it.
That was my whole experience with jiu-jitsu and MMA when I first started, man. It was just like, oh, there's these guys that look like nerds that are just beating people's asses everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and it's humbling, and I think more people need it. But you know, that's one of those
There's a
things.
lot of those reality checks. I had odd change of direction, but like I had this weird realization and perspective change, and it was I've been friends with HVIII for I don't know, a number of years at this point. I don't know how many it is, maybe 7 or 8. And it wasn't till recently, like he happened to be in Austin. I was in Austin, so I went and picked him up and we went to go train. And he's wearing the front seat of my truck. Like there's just so much dude there. And I've spent a lot of time around him, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I had this light bulb moment of like, I'm physically safe right now because you're letting me be. That if you decided to put your hands on me, there isn't anything I can do about it. Like I just don't have a chance to defend myself. And so like that perception click also then switched to, oh, that's how females should feel about 50% of the population. That's a very different fucking life than I've lived.
When I had that same thought, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, oh, I don't remember who told me, man. And they were like, it was a female I knew. And she goes, most men are afraid of being laughed at. We're afraid of being killed.
Killed.
And I was like, whoa. I was
and
like, I never thought of it.
It's just the realization of like, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. But and it extends to like I have a buddy who's a small guy, man, one of the toughest SOBs I've ever met in my life. And we were talking about some stuff, and he goes, B, you don't understand because you walk around and you're just you're you. He was like, I'm 5'5", like 120 pounds. He was like, I have to constantly be like on guard. And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, you've done all these things. And he's just like, it's like with a team.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never thought about it because, you know, as you're doing this training, that's just one of the dudes.
Yeah. I am obviously aware of how little I think I could defend myself in a physical altercation against someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you were to pin me up against someone else who doesn't know what they're doing, I've got some skills to bring to the table. But if that person is prepared at all, I'm in trouble.
I think that was like probably the best thing about venturing into that world, man. It was like you learn real fast. The other incident I had, this guy named John Rinkin, he fought in Pride as well. And he's famous for a documentary called Fight Church.
Okay.
And same thing, man. I meet this guy and I'm like, I walk in and John is not the textbook character for cool, right? Or what I assume is cool as especially a 25-year-old dude at the time. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to fuck this dude up. He beat the brakes off me. And the entire time I'm thinking, this is stand up. And the entire time I come to the realization, I'm like, he could end this if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. I was like, so this makes it worse.
Makes it worse.
Yeah, this makes it worse. He's just punishing me at this point.
He's just allowing you to work.
Yeah, he's just teaching me a lesson. Like, here you go. You're cocky. I see you're cocky. You don't have to say a word. I know it. You know, smell it on you basically, and we're gonna show you.
You see what, like back in UFC days, right? Like I remember the Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz stuff, and like Chuck spanking him in the ring, like had him bend over and actually slapped his ass. is just a moment of like, FYI, buddy, you're not driving this ship.
And that realization, I think, for people is
just go to the corner and hang it up. Be like, well, this isn't going to work out that great. I've made a mistake.
Yeah, man, it's a lesson that I think more people could be good to know. Hunter from Ash sent me an article about Dunning-Kruger effect. And that's exactly what it is. People that think that they're more well-versed than they are, right? So you think like experts, they said, I'm probably going to screw this up, we'll try it. Experts always go, I don't know enough. Middle ground people realize that they're experts, and people at the lowest rung go, I fucking know everything.
Yeah. That's tough.
You know? And they were like, more and more people fall into it. And there's this whole piece about it, Dunning-Kruger effect in athletics. So it's funny we're talking about this because, you know, you see it all the time. Guys, I could do that. I could hang that up. I could hang with that guy. And you're like, no, you couldn't.
Right.
Yeah, you absolutely can't. Like, you know, I see guys in the gym that aren't they're nobodies.
Yep.
We'll never know this guy's name. And I'm like, I couldn't do what he did if you gave me 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's one of those weird, and back to perspective, right? That like, I'm 6 foot 240-ish right now, and this is the least I've weighed since I was 17. And so, you know, bigger, I'd been 320 doing strongman, and most of the guys I competed with in the Highland Games, the average was 6'3", 310. And so I'm already giving up a bunch of size there. So I'm, especially growing up with my brother as well, I'm not a big guy. I know what big guys look like. Big guys look like that, or they look like fucking Hapthor, right? Like, in fact, they just don't make bigger people than him. Yeah. That's it. That's as big as they get. There's some variations to big, like maybe a hair taller, but there isn't bigger. Yeah. Yeah. And there's Brian Shaw. There's 2 of them. That's it. And, and realizing, like, for me, even within strength or any of those type of things, like, my abilities are at the beginning of scratching the surface to say I'm strong. I've seen things people do with weight or barbell or physically that I can't even grasp. And I'm just like, okay. Or especially now diving into cycling and other stuff like that, and realizing like what ability other people have for power generation. Like you have an assault bike?
No.
Okay.
I played on them though. I played on them enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just with wattage output.
Yeah.
And to look at stuff like that. Like my best 20-minute wattage output average is like 250, 260 watts I can average for 20 straight minutes. And then talking to a buddy on here a couple of days ago, Phil Guyman, who's a retired professional cyclist, he's 6'2", 148 pounds. Like he is built for speed, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the power to weight ratio there is ridiculous. And I'm like, so what's your best? Like FTP is what it's called, your power output. And he's like, for 20 minutes, I'm usually good for just under 500 watts. And I'm like, I don't fucking understand. like, holy shit. Like, especially then you're moving a bike with 100 less pounds on it.
Yeah.
And it just compounds.
Wow.
And so
that
I'm out of my element.
It's funny you said that. Like that's actually my next thing, man. I have this number in mind for powerlifting, and then
what are you chasing? What are we chasing?
1800.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm chasing 1800.
18
we keep
like raw, no sleeves, belt, like
right now sleeves and belt.
Right
raw as they say raw.
That's raw for me. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And then I'm going to try and get back into some other stuff, man. I love powerlifting, but I like being able to just wake up and like, I'm going to do this and that, play with this. And
that's all I've switched into now with the Daily Destroyer programming that me and Derek Woodsky have been doing. It's like, I want to be able to do whatever crosses my plate.
Exactly.
Like I've got a 50-mile bike ride I'm going to do tomorrow morning that I'm not really stressed about. Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I have the gas tank now. I can do 5 hours straight.
And I miss that feeling. Right. Like I love the feeling of being this strong. And this is mine's the opposite, right? Like I was a guy who was pretty small growing up. Right.
Okay.
At my height, at 6 feet, I was like 167 pounds.
Like at 18?
And now I weigh 100 pounds more.
Right.
you know, and so like literally I got on scales like 267 the other day.
Yeah. Like I was 176 going into high school.
Yeah.
And then I graduated high school at 270. Like I put on fucking 2 pounds a month for 4 years.
Wow. Yeah. See,
didn't try to. Just puberty showed up in an abundance of food, clearly, and I figured it out.
I was a guy. I was a kid, and I obviously didn't know anything, right? That's how you know I didn't pick up a muscle in fitness or a thing about weightlifting. Even though I was lifting, I was eating like 2 packs of ramen and rice at every meal. It's just not a single pound to be gained.
No, of course not. Especially like if you're that kid with that metabolism, like all you're doing is just putting gas on a fire that's already hot.
That's all it was, man. And then, but now, you know, at this weight, but I miss it, man. And then like the last thing I did was I ran this challenge in Hawaii where we did a marathon and powerlifting meet at the same time. Right. And so, yeah, 4 weeks, the goal or the challenge was 4 weeks apart. So you do the marathon, and then
4 weeks later,
you do the
the total?
Yeah.
Okay, so not like same day.
You're not same day, but you're training for and these are guys that they never lifted before. And so we're doing this for 24 weeks of training at the same time. And so I want to get back to stuff like that and bikes. And I think I want to play with an Ironman. You know?
Dude, the bike thing's fun. And the bike thing's fun for me. Look, I've never been a runner. I know this is a shock. But especially now, like running hurts. Yeah. And I see such a huge benefit from it cardiovascular wise. Like even if I can just get out to do like a 5K a week, which, you know, an hour, it translates to the bike so dramatically more than just being on the bike does.
Yeah.
And just the gas tank. And so like starting to play with that and realizing like running and trying to figure out running is such a just foreign land to me. And it's also nice because I'll never be good at it. So I don't have to worry about that switch flipping of like, oh, we could be good at this. And then cycling for me, especially mountain biking or anything else, it's what I wish running felt like. Like I wish I could travel at a speed like that and it not hurt. It just burn the lungs.
Yeah. I played around with some biking, nothing serious, man. And I pay, or I have a coach, I should say, Annie Gun Show, and she that's what she kind of does. There's a lot of concurrent training, and so she has to deal with my madness because I'm always like, you know, hey, like, what do you think we could be like? What's the strongest triathlon in the world, or strongest Ironman? What do you think that looks like?
Yeah,
and she's like, can we finish this one first?
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's my current move is like world's strongest cyclist. I'm trying to figure who can out-total me and outride me. I know plenty of people who can fucking outride me.
And so, you know, just playing with those things. So I that's probably my next move.
So what I'm learning now is you're going to be competition for my world's strongest cycling.
I wish, man. It's funny. You had a post a while ago about overhead pressing your body weight. Yeah. Dude, that is constantly my struggle. Everything else I do pretty well. I finally hit it once, but now I haven't hit it since then.
Dude, it's one of those things I've got, and it's just become more and more obvious apparently that the overhead strength I have is just not everyone has, and I just have taken completely for granted because of the circles I was in.
I think, you know, I wonder too though, being a big guy and then getting smaller, not saying it's an advantage, but like for me, it's the complete opposite. Like I never being over, like I struggled to get to 200 pounds. 200 and 220 were the ones where it was like, are we ever going to see this?
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. And then all of a sudden now I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to see under 220.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, my best strict press ever is like 327. And I definitely wasn't weighing anywhere near that. I was probably 275, 280. Yeah, it's a thing I have. It's my bench has never been good in relative comparison to what my overhead is. Like I've always been able to do just about the same amount of weight.
Yeah.
You know, I could push press whatever I could bench easy.
I'm gonna have to dig into it more, man. Now it just gets
and part of it's just I didn't bench. I always overhead lifted because with throwing, you know, that movement of timing things up from my legs to transfer power here. And I can get into a strong overhead position shoulder wise. That's why it's been good. A lot of guys can't get there. You know, they end up leaning back and doing that. Whereas I can get behind my head to where I'm in a great leverage point.
Yeah, I wonder how that works too. Cause like I finally hit it once and I haven't done it since then. And now I kind of like moved away from it. So, but now talking to you, I'm probably going to call her today and be like, okay, what do you think we can do?
Let's figure it out, man.
let's see how far we can push this thing,
dude. So let's talk about Warpath.
Yeah,
I know. You know, I think it's like I've said on the podcast for a long time that if you were interested in doing apparel, I'll help. You know, I will point the direction and do what I can to eliminate the mechanical hurdles that is this business.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't give you the magic part. It doesn't translate. This is a thing you've got to figure out the direction and brand and concepts and all that for you. But graphic designers and fulfillment, that's all mechanical. Let me remove those hurdles to let you figure out if this is a thing. Yeah. And you've done it. You're doing it.
We're doing it, man. I think I call it we're on the bubble right now.
Yeah.
So like this is the time where it's like, hey, we're either going to move forward and it's just going to be something that, you know, continues to grow, which I think we are. I'm completely stoked on it, man. This is I'll go full blown and sound corny, man. It's a thing that matters to me. You know, I think you see a t-shirt and it's just a t-shirt, but that's sometimes a little slogan, whether it's just because you're repeating it in your head or whatever it is, it might matter.
Look, if most people didn't believe that, we wouldn't be selling shirts.
This is true.
So,
and on top, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it.
And on top of it, man, the ability to try and help, man. Like it's a big thing for me. Like one of the ways I kind of found my gratitude, my solace is that in being able to help other people.
Yeah.
Right. And so whether that help is shedding the light on the fact that a guy's got a show coming up or helping him transition out of the military or donate money to MAPS or Warrior Angel Foundation or any of those other things, I'm all in.
Yeah. I think all of that stuff with, man, it seems to be the more I stay on the side of give, the more it just keeps wanting to come back.
Yeah.
You know, oddly enough, so I interviewed Mark Bell years ago, for the YouTube channel when I was doing this Drift to Lifta series. And I mean, this is back when I'm competing, and this is Mark is essentially just started Slingshot. Like they're still doing it out of his garage. Yeah. But I'd happened to known him for a while. And so I was interested and went and had an interview with him. And he was talking about Super Training Gym. And at that time was over in the corner in this really small area of the gym that they were in. And even then he was like, look, Super Training's free because I want to be rich. You know, that and rich, not just meaning financially, but like, I want to help. I want to give people a place to train. Don't get me wrong. It's free, but it ain't open to the public.
You know,
there's a difference there. Like if you have earned a spot and you want to come in and bleed and be part of this, the door is open.
Yeah.
But this is not conforming to you.
Yeah.
And look, the advantage of making shit free is you don't have to play by anyone else's rules.
You can be promptly removed.
Yep.
And I like that. Those are rules I'm very, very familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
And I think that's a good thing, man. For me, Warpath, man, and then actually now starting to lean into, Drew's been a big help on this and me actually trying to be more creative and actually put my writing out and get to that portion. And a lot of people have been pushing me, hey man, you should be writing, you should be telling these stories.
I'll go ahead and second that.
And so even like the shirts, man, like we put a shirt out called Empty the Tank, and it, like, as simple as it is, it's a thing we've literally been talking about all day. Right. Yep. what I'm asking myself, what I'm asking of myself, and what I'm asking of those around me is that daily you want to empty that tank. So if it goes wrong and Matt doesn't wake up tomorrow, or Hancé doesn't wake up tomorrow, people can look at it and be like, they burned it down as best they could.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, there's a thing I wrote similar to that a few days ago. Let me see if I can find it. Either way, a buddy of mine who's a lifter. He's going through like the dialysis and stuff like that, and like needs kidney transplant. And so whether or not that ever happens, who knows? Yeah. And he's talking about, lots of people think he's nuts because he's still training heavy, he's still pushing himself and doing all this. And I'm like, man, it's your time. And if you want to spend it doing what you love, pour into it and leave fucking empty. Pour into those people you love, pour into those people that you value that relationship, pour into this avenue that you found fulfillment in.
Well, I sent it to you a while ago. Like, you'd come up with the concept that made me write one of my articles was, about the fire damage from a tree, right? Right. And that's exactly it. Is like, if I can, there's going to be a portion in those rings that's just going to be so scorched and burnt that, you got to look back at it, or someone hopefully looks back at it and goes, he was doing it, whatever it was for him, and it mattered, and I think that's all that you can ask for, man. It's like, you don't want to leave any chips on the table.
Well, and look, you make steel stronger by fire. You make, like, even if you want to make a spear out of wood, you burn it because it hardens it, right? Like that's part of the goal. The goal is not to avoid hard times or bad times or anything. Like, the goal is to be better.
Yeah. You want to grow through it, and you want to just get better, man. And that's all I can keep saying. It's become such a thing for me. Is to like, all right, I could cower away at this. I could. And it's just like your buddy, man, like, he's in this position where a lot of people, they probably would cower away and do these other things or whatever, or you can lean into it. And here's another big one, right? Someone's always watching, social media or not. One of the biggest turning points in my life that wasn't, a family member or somebody dying or something like that, is I had a guy come to me one day and go, he's getting out of the army. He goes, I've decided to stay. And I'm like, dude, I thought you were done. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I'm staying because of you. And I was like, for me, like, what, this is kind of like at that trend. I think everybody in leadership positions, at least for me, you go through this thing where you're not sure how much it matters, how much what you're doing matters. And that's where I was at the time. And he goes, well, the way you show up every day and you're fired up and you're pumped up and you're trying to get stuff done and everything else, he's like, I decided I want to stay. And I was like, so you're going to add another 3 years of your life doing this because of me? And he was like, yep. And I was like, holy shit. And that's when a kind of light bulb moment went off, and it was like,
you have an obligation.
You be the example. So for your buddy, man, like, there's somebody watching who is suffering or struggling, and they're not saying a word. They're not hitting, or
scared or scared to pursue their passion.
Yep.
Or be them, for that matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh man, it's funny. That picture with from Dark Knight Returns, where I think it's Dark Knight Returns, the one with Bane.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, the Joker. I'm sorry, where he's taking off his mask, and it's the one clown mask just to reveal the Joker.
Yep.
I think about that picture a lot because I think about people, not that they want to be clowns, but
sure.
But I think about the fact that how many people are wearing that mask.
Oh, I think a lot of people are operating in a way to be perceived in the way that they want to be perceived instead of being who they are. And it's tough, right? Because it's easy for me to think that and use it on very light terms, but Like, I also don't have a feeling in my gut that I need to be a different gender. I don't have a feeling in my gut that
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't have those big giant identity issues. And so
But
that's
even then though, right?
But even then, man, I want you to be you.
But even so, like, here's a big one, right? And here's one that before you and I ever exchanged a message or anything that made me resonate with you is like, so I was going through all my shit at the same time you were kind of investing in hate full time. And there was a point, and I think it was you that said, I'm pretty sure it was you that said it, where you're talking about your identity being wrapped up in something. And at the same time where they looked at me and they said, you don't have to just be a soldier.
Yeah.
That is not just who you are, you know? And that's what it was. The part that I got from you was, this is a thing that I did that I was good at.
Yep.
And I remember, and I heard that and I was like, and it was like all the thing I needed to hear to be like, oh, I don't have to just be a soldier. I don't have to just be a veteran. This doesn't have to be my identity. And I can be.
No different than I'm not a high school football player.
Yeah.
You know, I did that. I was good at it.
It's a thing though for that community, man, that I think like it's another thing I when I'm talking to guys, like I always try and push them to remove that part of their
that's a tough identity. One. It's a tough one to, and it's, you know, that community is one thing. And looking at that community from, you know, the outside, and part of what I think is the part of the hang up is that you go from this unity and team setting, and you go from this guys who are literally going to put it on the line for you, that the volume and intensity is cranked up in so many of those situations that when it goes back to civilian life, you're not in that team, you're back to being alone because no one has these experiences and no one has ever felt that level of commitment to like, I got you.
Well, even if you turn it down, like here's a couple of things of like a lot of things don't get talked about when you talk about vets, like even small stuff, right? Like there's no other job on the planet where your boss is going to tell one of your coworkers to go pick you up because you had a flat tire.
Right.
It's not going to happen, right? And then even on that note, like my old man was a tunnel rat in Nam, right?
Okay.
So some really gnarly shit.
Gnarly shit.
And when people meet him, they're always like, once they find out, they're always like, how is this dude so well adjusted? And so after my first trip downrange, we still didn't really talk about it. My second trip downrange, we talked about it. And I remember asking him, like, what's up? Like, how are you like this? Whatever, you know. We're just having a giant conversation in general about everything. And he's like, I stayed in. He's like, I stayed in around guys where I could have a conversation about, hey man, did you have a weird dream about the things that we did that wasn't cool and you didn't get it
wasn't cool.
You know, you didn't get the deer in the headlights look where somebody's like, you're crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely a huge part. And then there's another huge part where guys, because it is your identity, you can't let it go. And when you can't let it go and you can't move on, in other words.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the biggest things for me was like, oh, you know.
Well, I think your average person, especially like, let's just look at popularity of American football in the NFL, because I think high school football is the last time most men in our country are part of a physical team that's set to accomplish a thing that you're accountable to other men next to you. So of course we're still part of a team. Like, yeah, we're wearing the jerseys and we're fucking part of it in the stands, you know, having some type of community aspect of a thing we used to do that I get what they're going through, but there isn't that for military. Like there isn't, you know, like an outlet like that works in that. And yeah, I mean,
I think that's why those things work though. Like I think that's why strongman works, you know, powerlifting gyms
it's fucking all community.
Yeah. Yep.
It's shared Jiu-jitsu. Suffering. It's those type of things. And when you're around people who don't get it, you know, Highland Games is a weird one because there's not a ton of us. I mean, there's only probably 15 or so of us around the world whenever I was competing that were good enough to compete at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I retired, I didn't realize how much I missed that. You know, because there isn't this big Highland Games community of athletes on the world, especially then. No, there's no coaching. There's no business side to it. It was just us, man. We were sharing information with each other and throwing videos with each other of like, how does this look? Do you guys think this is right? Because the generations before us didn't get to interact other than really when they went to compete. And because we had social media and these other aspects to kind of share all of these things we were trying to do, like all of us trained by ourselves. There weren't coaches. There's not information. There's a handful of little things that you try to like find some secret fucking DVD that some guy had made years ago. But like realizing that like, oh man, the guys that share and know what that was, that when we're together, we don't have to talk about training by ourselves or doing it because we're all doing it. You know, it's the same thing of respect for me that like, if you're strong, you've put a barbell in your hands and we have shit in common. You've done a thing for a long time that no one else cares about but you. Yeah. And that's a tough community to leave. Yeah. And realize that no one knows who you are.
No one understands that aspect of you. I 100% agree. Like, it's funny. I've you know, with the whole COVID and like, online schooling, I call it super dad, man. I've been like online school and everything else. So I moved my training to night, and I normally don't train at night. I normally train super early. And as I'm going to the gym at like 10:30 at night, I'm like, no one cares.
No one cares.
It's like, and you show up and there's a gym and it's like 4 people there.
Which is more important. Which is more important because fucking realize you care and quit giving a shit. Right? That I'm doing this because I fucking need it. It keeps this on point. And it keeps, fuck. Do you know Rudy? Yeah. Okay. So Rudy, it took me a few years to sort Rudy out. There's not another Rudy. And so the first handful of times I got to meet him, it would be like once or twice a year we'd cross paths at different events. And so talking to Rudy Reyes, for anyone listening, is a very interesting, unique human, and love the guy. And it took me a long time to realize that what he was doing wasn't to impress me. Like, he's not running around the gym like a fucking maniac for everyone in there to go, holy shit, look what Rudy can do. Rudy's doing that because at this point, Rudy has accepted Rudy's demons. And this is what Rudy does to keep them chained up and in sight. So that he's in control.
It's funny. I got a buddy out in Utah who runs a program. It's basically an outdoor gym, and he's got a couple like pro bell and old NFLers and everything else like there. And we had a conversation a while ago, and that was kind of the thing. It was like, at some point in time, you have to stop running from your demons, and you start having to figure out how to just be okay with them. Like,
outsmart them.
Yep. Like, he's going to be here. He's going to sit here, and he's going to sit here for the rest of the day, because, which is another thing, like, I think it's worth talking about, is like, I think everybody, when you start to have, especially a certain type of demon, your thought is, I'll just stay busy. And at some point in time, you can't be busy. It's going to happen.
Dude, that's that type of thing for me. The biggest realization that I had clicked came from chronic pain. And that's what the light bulb clicked for me of those internal demons, which I've been very fortunate with. I don't have addiction issues. I don't have abuse issues. I don't have any of that. Nor have I really dealt with any long-term depression. And so the chronic pain to me was a light bulb switch to realize, like, oh, it's always there. And it's not that you're having a bad time 24 hours a day, but at any time that you're not occupied, it's sitting there going, hey, what's up?
Exactly.
Hey.
Exactly.
And so unless you can figure out how to fucking address that thing, you can't run.
Yeah, it's just there. And that was a big thing for me too. Like even after my whole deal, and I was like, all right, well, now I'm trying to move towards, we'll just say being whole, right? It was at first, my first move was stay busy all the time.
Oh yeah. That ain't
Yep,
sustainable.
stay busy. Yep, and then it's not sustainable. And you hit it, and you're like, oh man, well they're there. They ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Then you start trying to figure out like, how am I okay with this? And whatever that looks like. My thought, man, I know everybody's got their own. My thought is like, be okay with it however you have to. If that looks strange or weird to people, who fucking cares?
Who fucking cares? There's no, well, so for me, a big same type of concept, and I kind of look at it and describe it as, I've given up on thinking anything is right or wrong anymore, especially emotionally.
Yeah.
And that it is simply, this is how I feel. What do we do with it?
Yeah.
Do we let it dictate our day, or do we make peace with it and figure out ways to outsmart it? Not just distraction, but outsmart it.
I mean, how can you use it as fire or fuel for the fire?
Right.
Which is funny, man. Like, which is a big thing for me. I always tell people, like, when it comes to the gym, but even just normal life stuff, like, I don't care how strong you are. I just want your energy. That's what you're here for. Yeah. You're here because you're pumped up. I'm pumped up. We're excited about whatever it is. Or maybe it's even the opposite. Maybe we're angry. I don't care. We're feeding off of it now. We're in it. Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm not scared of anger either.
Yeah. Like, let's get to that. And that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm feeding off of, right? Like, I want to be around more people who that's what they're doing. They're just looking to push.
And that to me that's everyone has anxiety. And I describe anxiety, that it's a metaphor I really like and use it for a handful of things, but it's fucking fire, right? And it's either you can freak out and let it get out of control and burn your fucking house down and ruin your life, or you can cook all your meals, you can warm your family's house, you can forge tools. A fire doesn't care. And that's what anxiety is. It's energy. And it's figuring out how to direct that force where you want it, instead of letting it cripple you to the point that you can't react anymore. And then you're fucking owned by it. Man, the idea of me giving the fucking wheel up of my life to something else, no.
Yeah, not interested in it. I get it and I understand. This is one that I have a harder time with. Not that I don't understand it. I get it. But like, anxiety for me, and I think this is something you could probably definitely relate to, is like, I think due to competition, due to those things, being able to translate it and use it, it comes off a lot better.
Dude, I recommend competing in something to everyone, and not because I want you to see that you're better than other people. I want you to develop confidence in the fact that you fucking perform when you say perform.
Yep.
Now's the fucking time. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be ideal. Training's rarely going to be ideal. And like, if you train long enough, the average in shitty days are about 2/3 of the day, of the days that you'll go to the gym, just by definition. But you can either look at it like that, or you can think the average 2/3 are average and great. And the bad days, those are the ones that I really make the ground, because I perform anyway. Because I fucking do it because I can, because I'm in control.
That's the thing that I think. So what I don't necessarily tell people to compete. What I always say is, find something where you can put your neck on the line.
Yeah, so it's exact same thing. Find
something where that feeling of being embarrassed, the feeling of
a time is coming. TikTok, there is a finite day that is coming that you need to perform a task or a thing or a speaking or any of that. I didn't realize how much I got the same competition feeling from doing speaking things. I started getting them prior to going on to podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, can I do this? You know, can I manage a conversation? Can I do this with someone different? You know, is it going to go well? Is it going to be yes and no answers from someone that you're like, well, fuck, you know? And so it is a challenge that I just want to force myself to perform when I say do it.
Yep. That's something, I have my first speaking thing in March. And so I'm interested in, that same thing. I mean, I'm no stranger to crowds, man.
Yeah.
Granted, it was, you know, a different role and I'm wearing a uniform, but
crowd full of people who've also all shit their pants. It's not a big deal.
And a crowd full of people. And I think even more so for me, like, right. Like, I tell guys all the time, like, you know, something I don't think people realize with a lot of military audiences is they just want you to stop so they can go home.
Yeah, dude. What is it? It's Tom Segura's got a comedy special, Disgraceful. And one of the things he says at the very beginning of it is just like, fuck this, let's go home. He's like, that's basically the meaning of life. He's like, don't get me wrong, I'm excited to be here, but get on with it.
Yeah. And because it's funny, man, my old boss used to be like, we used to do these promotion ceremonies and he'd be like, B, they really want to hear you talk. And I was like, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
They don't. They don't want to hear. They want to go home.
They want to go home. They're forced to be here.
I was like, they want to go home. I was like, I'm going to say one sentence and I'm going to walk off.
Mm-hmm. Dude, it's that type of stuff. And having that realization, another realization that I think people give or panic about is thinking people care more than they do. You know, on across the board, that people are concerned about your shit as much as you are, because they don't. And like a very easy idea of that, like think about the amount of time people spend into getting dressed to go to a function. Now, I'd like you to look back at that function that you maybe have thought about, like, does this look right? Blah, 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 blah. And name one other thing that someone else was wearing. You don't have any fucking funny. Clue. So why do you think they fucking remember or have any give a fuck about what you chose to wear to this thing?
Oh man, that's exactly the point I would make, specifically for military engagements and talking to guys. I used to tell guys all the time, I'm like, can you remember a thing that speaker said? Oh, like, exactly.
Right.
I'm like, exactly. They want to go home, you know, depending on where it is, the weather might be shitty. We're making them stand outside, yada, yada, yada. I was like, just say your piece and get on with it.
You know, sometimes success isn't a home run. Sometimes success is not getting out.
Yeah.
Right. That like, let's, you know, if you have anxiety about a speech or performing or doing any of these, I like to kind of reverse engineer things of like, okay, what does equal a total fuck up and failure? Like if you went on stage for that and started screaming Nazi propaganda, that probably is a failure, right? Yeah, so like, all right, we'll put that on the list of shit to avoid. Let's not do these things. And then we're going to be better. Maybe keep all my clothes on would be a better, you know, decision. Like there's some big picture things that are major failures. And if we just avoid those big failures, we're okay. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect because perfect doesn't fucking exist. It's not real.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a thing that I've constantly struggled with in dealing with people are perfectionists. Is I want things to be better and I want them to be, and I'm just constantly looking for progress. So when I meet people who their idea is perfection, I'm always baffled by them. I'm like,
man, perfectionist, right? Like there was
like, have you achieved this in this 30 years or 20
don't
years?
let good enough get in the way, or sorry, don't let the pursuit of perfection get in the way of good enough. Yeah. And this was a conversation that I had to have with the guy Brant that I've hired to do videography work, who's light years fucking better at anything I was editing, and trying to explain the idea to him of like, yo, this is a monster that's never fed. Like there's another video, and so no matter how perfect you make this one, there's a video due next week. So I need you to get used to getting reps. Like if you want to start a YouTube channel, don't spend 6 fucking months on your first video. Spend your first 6 months getting to video 100. Because you're better at video 100 than you are at the first one.
Yeah.
You've edited, you've managed time, you figured out how to film properly, you figured out how to go through footage better, you figured out how to film more efficiently.
Yeah.
So that you're not sorting through 5 hours of footage for a 10-minute video. You maybe have 30 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
And it's repetition, just like anything else. And if you want to be good at it, like people like, well, I'm not good at that. Like, well, for me, like one of those things, I'm like, man, I am a fucking terrible carpenter. And of course I am. I've done fucking none of it. Like, why, this isn't a natural thing that you just have.
Yeah.
It develops just like anything else. And so give yourself that time and credit too.
It's allow yourself to be shitty at something.
Yeah, dude. Like that's part of the joy of like getting into cycling or doing jujitsu or any of that for me. Is like, I'm fucking bad at this. And so like me entering a new arena that I get newbie gains is so much fun.
Yeah. That's like so I've shot some archery before, but I'm getting ready to dive head first into it, man. And it's one of those things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the frustration, and I'm also looking forward to that, like you said, like those newbie games. And you get to be the weird guy for a little while who just sucks at it.
Dude,
and that's
you don't
okay.
get better at stuff until you're bad at it. But people avoid failure or fuck the concept of failure so much.
Here's a good one. I met this guy. And this has happened several times, but this one, it was just so blatantly obvious. This guy wanted to go do a bunch of stuff in the military, a bunch of special operations, whatever. And he speaks like 5 languages. He run in the Army at the time, you had to do it. I don't even know if they're still doing anymore. You had to do a 2-mile timed event for your PT test or whatever. 2-mile run. His 2-mile run was like 10 minutes or something ridiculous.
Fast.
Yeah, just fast, right? And I'm like,
I'm doing like 1 in 12.
Yeah, and he's like, and he's questioning me like, I don't know if I can make it, if I can do it. I was like, you're better at me than everything. I was like,
right.
Stop this nonsense. And I was like, on top of it, unless you step on your crank, you can go back.
Yeah.
I was like, you'll be fine. And he was just like, I don't know. And I'm just like, and so like, that's one of those things, like I didn't, the 2 realizations I had with, we'll say, success and failure that I didn't understand. It's like people who are so afraid of failure that it's paralyzing. Like I didn't get it because the people that I had been around for so long are all the type of guys where it was like, oh, well, we fucked that up. Let's not fuck it up the same way again.
Right. Which is pretty simple.
Yeah. Like, it would be like fail fast, fail hard, hate the failure.
Yeah.
Like, and
I talk about it the same way that like the idea of failure avoidance is you're cheating yourself out of so many lessons because failure is a far better teacher than success is.
Oh man.
Because success only teaches you one way. Failure teaches you a bunch of ways that didn't work.
Oh man. Like, all the failures,
because problem solving is important. Fucking all of it are the real skills that get you to success.
Yeah. And I the other one that baffles me is guys that don't want to do anything. It was very, very weird for me to like, I'd be talking to guys saying like, why wouldn't you want to do the best at this? Or why wouldn't you want to do, and I just kind of want to do nothing.
That's a tough one, dude. A lack of ambition's tough. And I don't always have an answer for that. And there's part of me that's competitive that's like, okay, well then that makes things easier for me.
Yeah.
If you're who I have to compete with for the rest of my life for work or jobs or anything, like I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'll outwork you.
That was one of those things I was going to say earlier. We got kind of sidetracked is like, talking about like working out and training with no one else cares and everything else. I think that there is typically I don't think you'd say it out loud, but like, I think it's one of those things, like if you train by yourself, you kind of get off on the fact that you train by yourself when no one else is willing to do it, or they're going to do it the same way. Or, even though I'm not going to be a world champ or a world record holder, but I know when I make my next trip to wherever, I'm already going to have my gym picked out. I'm already going to make sure my training session and everything is straight. And it's a little thing where I'm like, okay.
Well, look, I can't control how anyone else performs. I can't control their genetics. I can't control their history. I can't control their desire. This is all this is all I can stand in front of, right? Is I'm in control of me, and I've got my own shortcomings and my own fuck ups and my own limitations. But to choose to let someone outwork me, nah.
Yeah.
Nah, I'll bleed for it. I'm happy to bleed for it. That's fine by me. Yeah. I'll be broke. I can suffer. I can deal with it longer.
And that's the piece right there, man, where I just
the war of attrition, man.
Yeah. If you can, just hanging on sometimes, but hanging on in the best way you possibly can.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man.
And that's the name of the game, I think, on some level. On some level, it's like, how can I push this progress? How can I hang on? And then, like I said, you want to, as the shirt says, empty the tank, right?
Yeah.
Every day.
Well, dude, as we're coming in to wrap this up, a little over 2 hours, I think. And, dude, thank you so much for coming on. And I really, really appreciate it. I imagine we'll do this again. And I can't recommend enough to you to write and do the podcast.
I will. We'll set it up, and I definitely want to come out to 949 and check you guys out.
Yeah,
and,
if you want to come out to St. Louis, let me know.
We will do it, and I will definitely be in touch. And writing it's happening now. It's about the publish button.
Yeah, I'm currently working on trying to pick up my own gym space. 949 is great, and I was really lucky to partner up with those guys and have a place for equipment and get to train and shoot it. But I want to get a place that's closer to where my house is, and that I can be in a hair more control of lighting and everything else, so that I can do shoots and content with it being less of a hour commute to and from the gym to go do it.
Yeah.
It becomes that hour commute, the drive there for 30 minutes and then getting set up. And then, I mean, like, it's tough to go when you're like, we only need 30 minutes of photos. I don't want to drive.
That's the beef with this area right now. Like, I'm still a nomad technically. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to place my forever home.
Yeah, man.
Well,
but we're just 10 years at a time as far as I look at it.
Yeah. And so I'll figure it out. But that was one of the things, is like commute out here is just outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
It's will breaking. Like that's why, like, look, and it's because I'm aware of my shortcomings. And one of the things I hate the most is inconvenience. And so if I can spend money, which is one of the resources I have some of, to eliminate inconvenience, that's where I'm fucking pouring cash in.
I don't blame you. My thing is, I'm a time guy, man. So I start looking at it. I'm like, that's an hour in the truck. I'm like, I could have written, or I could have done whatever I
could have hung out with my kids. I could have fucking, whatever you want to do with that hour that isn't sitting in the car. Look, the best use of that time in the car is you can still do audiobooks or podcasts and try to fire yourself up and double dip at least while you're doing something.
That's exactly, that's what I've been doing too. And it is exactly that. So it's funny you said that, but
dude, where can everyone find all your stuff?
I post mainly on Instagram, a traveling man, a traveling _man. And then we are Warpath on Instagram as well. And the blog is on the website, and I will be posting more.
That's on the Warpath website?
Yep, we are warpath.com.
Right on.
And we are dropping 3 things here shortly.
Yeah, man.
So
good work.
I'm excited about it, and the guys from Ash have been amazing. I can't say enough about Drew. Dude,
he's one of my oldest friends. I realize it now that, like, I've got a best friend, Dant, who I've known since like 5th grade, and then it's Drew. Like, that's it. That's as far as people I've known the longest and that I'm still in touch with. Like, my history with Drew is the singer of the band that I helped tour manage for, and was making music and doing all that. And so we've known each other since 2001, 2002. Yeah. And it's been a hell of a road.
Yeah, Drew's been awesome to me, man. Like, he's one of the guys, like, when I first started this, he was like, hey, he's like, people like a company or they want to buy you. And he was like, I understand you don't want to put yourself out there.
That's a mistake.
he was like, you got to do it.
Dude, it's tough. And I know this too from, other friends in the community with Nick Cumulatos or Jeff Nichols or any of these other guys I've been lucky enough to call friends. The community gets weird about benefiting from your time in it. But at the same time, these are the skills I built.
Well, see, for me, it's a bit different because what I tell guys is if you want to hear war stories, there's guys out there for that.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's there's guys who saw, I've been lucky. I've been around. I've seen some things, but I'm not that guy.
Sure.
Right. What I am is I'm a guy who's I've been in some leadership positions. I fucked some things up. Yeah. I've done some things really well. And more than anything else is I've got a host of guys who are willing to sacrifice and lay it on the line for me, which I think says more than anything I could ever say about myself.
I agree. That's what real leaders and guys that you would happily do the same for.
Yeah. I tell guys all the time, man, funny thing before we'll wrap it up real quick, but that scene in The Town where he walks in and he's like, hey, when it fucks people up, you can never ask me about it again. Yeah. Right. I think when you have friends like that, that's what you want. Right.
Yeah. And, those ride or dies, man. I don't know how many you get during a lifetime. Right. But I've got a buddy Keaton who one of the things he says, he's like, I don't have friends. I have family and I have acquaintances.
Yep.
You fall into one of those two categories.
I think it only takes 6 to carry a casket, man.
Dude, I have 6 fleur-de-lis tattooed on my arm, and that's what that is. Yep. 7 don't make the fucking cut. Fuck them all but 6. Dude, that's it. So Drew, by the way, years ago with Merriweather, one of the songs is you only need 6 good friends.
Oh, wow. So I've been listening to some old Merriweather. I've been listening to a bunch of, and Drew, he sends me some of his new stuff.
It's rad.
Forward. Yep. Yeah. And
he's a fucking talented guy, man.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, guys like that, man, I really appreciate it. I got a buddy, that's actually my Instagram name, a guy named Dan Warden, runs a Enlightened Studio Cafe in Florida where you can go down there and make music videos, play live music. But he wrote a song, The Traveling Man, was about me and the fact that I can't sit still.
Nah, man.
We'll put it like that.
Look, you don't have to explain shit to me. I don't sit still. I'm trying to go. Now's the time.
All the time, man. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on,
dude.
Brother.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know, man.
Hey, we'll be to it, and I'll link up with you, man, and we'll set up a time.
Let's do it.
Come out there and
Thank you, sir, and I will link everything below. Thank you guys for listening. Have yourselves a lovely day.